What's up? Pastor Brandon here. Welcome to Graceway's Parenting Conference. We are super stoked that you guys are joining us today. Kirk Martin from Celebrate Calm is here to share how we can eliminate those power struggles, yelling and arguing while building a close, trusting relationship with our kids. The conference is starting right now, so let's do this.
Let's do this thing together, y'all. Hey! Come on, let's sing. I'm not gonna wait for the walls to fall, 'cause I know a name that will bring them down. And I gotta pray waking within my soul, and I'm not ashamed to declare it now. Come on, say, the light of the world, trample the darkness, nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Hey! Come on, prepare the way. Prepare the way. The King of glory comes. Before his name, every fear must bow. Hey! Throw off your chains. Jesus destroyed them all. Up from the grave, he is with us now. Come on, say, the light of the world, trample the darkness. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word, yeah, will be accomplished. Nothing can stop triumph. Oh, my God will never fail. Oh, my God will never fail. Come on, say, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Come on, sing, there's power. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. And I'm not backing down from any giant, 'cause I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. Say, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Hey, hey. Come on, say. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. Hey. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
to see you. Did you get a good night's rest last night? You did. All right. Both of you did. Good deal. I hope you had some good conversations. We're excited to have you back. Let me just real quickly go ahead and have a seat. Let me just real quickly let you know what the morning's going to look like. We have 3 sessions for you. And because of the amount of content that Kirk has, we're going to try to keep our breaks short. And so if you find yourself longing for a break, just go ahead and dismiss yourself and kind of sneak back in as you see fit. And we're going to do our best to get you out of here as close to noon as possible, okay? But because Kirk has a lot of content, I'm going to pray. I'm going to invite him up here, and we're just going to get rolling, okay? Everyone good with that? All right, good deal. It's good to see you. Let me pray. And when you open your eyes, Kirk will magically appear, okay? All right, Lord, we love you. We thank you for your grace to us this morning. We again thank you for our families and the privilege that it is, God, but through your Holy Spirit, would you lead us, direct us, encourage us, correct us where we need it, God, so that our families can be strengthened for your glory and our joy. In Jesus' name, amen. Show some love to Kirk.
Long enough. I was still blowing my nose. For once you were short with your prayer, and it hurt me. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming back today after last night. And so I had a really cool parenting moment last night with Casey. He has a really bad cough. He's not contagious. He's on antibiotics. You're okay. So he's coughing, and so my first instinct is, what a jerk. I'm trying to sleep. Selfish. Why do you choose to get sick? How many of you ever think like that? Where are all the men? And then I tried to have, so I'm laying in bed, and I was psyched. I'm like, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep, which I never get up, work out. It's 2:30 in the morning, and so I'm like, I think I'll try my motherly thing, right? Because I'm not like that. So I go over and I sit and rest my hands on him because I like physical touch. And I'm trying to be all nice. And he goes, Dad, I love you, but you're compressing my lungs. I can't breathe. And so then I figured, good, I'll go back to being a dad. Just stop coughing and keeping me up. So anyway, that's kind of my natural instinct, to be a jerk. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. How many of you were not here last night? Okay, a couple people. Last night was phenomenal. Today's going to be okay, so your fault for not being here. But we kind of established that the quickest way to change your child's behavior is to control yourself. I wanted to start off this morning and do some things on discipline. And I'm going to roll pretty quickly this morning to try to give you, put a lot of meat on what we kind of established last night. So a few things with discipline. To me, discipline is something you do for your child, not to your child, right? It's a gift that you give them. 3 questions I always ask when I'm disciplining my child is 1, am I teaching him or her something? Because discipline means literally to teach, not punish, not give consequences. 2, am I showing him or her a different way to do it next time? And 3, am I building my relationship with my child? Because in a lot of discipline that I was brought up with, the discipline was just kind of harsh to get you to stop behaving a certain way. But I believe that good discipline should lead you to a closer, more trusting relationship with your child. And we'll kind of show that throughout this morning. Because I really believe this, when it comes down to it, relationships change behavior. Techniques, strategies are good. Consequences can be fine, but strong-willed kids don't care about it. But it's the relationship that ultimately gets it. I remember one time Casey and I were, he was in his teen years and he wanted to do something and I'd said no. And so we were kind of going round and round because I allowed him at times to give his viewpoint, and your kids are very bright. And he was making some good points, and I was like, it's a good point. But the answer is still no. And so at the end of the day, look, I can always fall back on the fact I'm dad, what I say goes. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to go there, and I just looked at him and I said, Casey, I just have one question. Do you trust me? Do you trust that I have your best interests at heart? Do you trust me that I'm looking out for you, even if you don't like the decision? And he kind of eventually came back and he said, I don't like your choice. I don't necessarily like you right now, but I do trust you, Dad. And that was kind of my trump card from then on, is to go the trust angle. It's kind of a cool thing. So early on when I was a dad, because of my dad, how he taught me to do it, I thought my job was to be the chief disciplinarian in the home. Like I thought my job was to kind of roam through the house. You catch your kids and your wife doing things wrong, and then you correct them. And apparently, wives don't like that. So I got it into my head, finally figured out, what if my job is to be the chief source of wisdom in my home? What if my job is to give my kids wisdom so that they can begin to control themselves and I don't have to roam around the house just barking all the time? So we're going to get into that, kind of how to do that. One of my favorite things that we didn't get into last night was this. So do any of you have kids who kind of struggle in school a little bit with behavior, right? A lot of, when we do teaching in schools, I train a lot of teachers. We talk about a lot of our schools use those red, yellow, green behavior charts. And they don't work because for most of our kids, what happens is this. School begins at 8 a.m. By 8:05, I'm already on red. And you know what your kids say? If I'm going to be on red today, I may as well just double down and make it a really bad day. Because the truth is, I'm never making it to green, right? And by 2:20 in the afternoon, I'm on green, and then all of a sudden your kids do something impulsive at the end of the day, and they go right to red. And so they eventually just give up. So think about this, 2 different ways to handle behavior. Typically what we do is we wait for the child to mess up. Child does something wrong, we react to it and give the child a consequence. So what we're really doing is reacting to failure. But what if I know that my child struggles in a certain area and proactively I give him or her tools to succeed so they don't get to the failure in the first place? That will also eliminate a lot of the lying, because lying comes from I'm in trouble and don't want the consequence. Does that make sense conceptually? So let's go through a few tools. Some of these are going to be for the classroom, but you can apply them to every kind of everyday life. How many of you have kids who struggle with focus and attention? Okay, right? Not a shocker these days. So, this is a sensory strip. Nothing magical about it. It's double-sided tape, and then on this side are some little textury strips that we got from an arts and crafts store. Science and research say when kids play with textured objects, it actually improves concentration, right? How many of you have kids with busy hands, right? They're doing things with their hands. So look, just saying hands to yourself will never work. They have to do something with those hands. So what we do with this is, say this is a desk at school, we tape this right underneath the desk. That way a child can be sitting in class all day long playing with this thing. It doesn't make any noise. He can't whack his classmate in the face with it. Okay, it doesn't change the entire school day, but a few times when I was zoning out or wanted to play with my classmate's face or hair, I had something appropriate to play with. Remember, whenever you take away something inappropriate, give them something appropriate to do. That's a tool. How many of you have kids who, do any of you have kids who just struggle with just impulse control? They get up and walk around in class, right? So let's say, thank you for sitting in the same spot, Christian. Christian is in my class, and most of you do, right? Everybody comes back to their familiar spots. So, Christian's in my class. He can be in 3rd grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, doesn't matter to me. But I know that after about 16 minutes, Christian's going to get bored in my class. He's going to get up, walk around the classroom, start talking to people, and the teacher's going to be, hey, Christian, hey, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Look. By the way, we mentioned last night, watch with the eye contact stuff. Many of your kids think better, listen better when they're looking away. Don't worry about that. I have a lot of kids in, do any of your kids get in trouble in circle time? Little kids? Okay, if they do, don't worry about it, right? Because they're like, sit on the square. Your strong-willed kids aren't going to sit on the stupid square. Why? Because it's arbitrary and dumb, right? And that's how they view things. I know for some of you who are rule followers, that's like, oh, no, you have to sit on the square. Why? Now, we'll get into this a little bit later, how your kids think, but it's arbitrary, so they're not. So allow them to lie back on their backs and look up at the ceiling. They'll pay perfect attention when they're doing that. It just freaks teachers out because we associate eye contact with respect. Look, many of your strong-willed kids as teenagers, they're giving you eye contact, but they're flipping you off in their brains, right? So it has nothing to do. So, by the way, don't worry when you get those calls like, your daughter can't sit still in circle time. You know why? Because circle time's stupid. After you're 5, you never have to sit in a circle. Okay? Nobody at your office is going to be like, hey, Frank, 3 o'clock in the conference room, circle time, right? Look, you're going to have, I really mean this, I'm not being funny, you're going to have to, with your strong-willed kids, they're going to challenge things. And you're going to have to determine what's really important and what's not. Because my natural view in life is if I have a rule, it's that that rule is meant to be broken somehow or find a way around it. And your kids are going to find all those arbitrary things, and you're going to have to weigh it and say, it's not really important that she sits perfectly still when she's 5, right? Am I going to project out and think, oh, she's not going to be successful in life? And you're going to have to give her tools, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you're just going to have to decide what's really important with the strong-willed kids. Because many of your strong-willed kids in school, they're just going to be in trouble a lot. And that's sometimes their issue, and sometimes it's just the arbitrary nature of how we do things. Same in church. Churches have all kinds of arbitrary things that we just came up with that are traditions, and your kids are going to kick against those. So I'm going to pull Christian aside, and I say, Christian, I could really use your help. How many of you know for strong-willed kids, magical words? They love helping other adults. So listen, when I'm teaching in class, my mouth gets really dry, and I know you need to move. I like talking to kids honestly about the way they're made, right? I don't have to put a diagnosis like, it's clear that you have ADHD. I don't need to know a diagnosis. I just notice with some kids, if I walk into a classroom and a child's doing this, I'm like, that kid's not sitting still for 50 minutes. He needs to move. So Christian, I need your help. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to get water for me, refill my water bottle while I'm teaching. So you and I are going to have a secret signal. So when I'm teaching and I do this or this, here's what I want you to do. You get up out of your seat, you come up to my desk, you grab my water bottle. You're going to take it to the back of the room and refill it. You're going to bring it up, sit on the desk, you sit down. You're not going to talk to anybody. You're not going to distract anybody. You're going to be Mr. Invisible. You up for that? Little kids love that. Older kids will get beat up for being Mr. Invisible, so leave that part out. So, notice, remember we talked last night about tone of voice. I can talk to a strong-willed child in an even matter-of-fact tone like an adult, and they'll take it all day long. You're not going to distract anybody. As soon as I get a little bit snotty, you know what, Christian? Every time I ask you to do a job, that snotty tone you use with your kids immediately provokes in them, screw you, right? And the truth is, if someone talks to you in a snotty tone, that's how you react, right? So go even matter of fact. So I'm teaching in class, 16 minutes in, I notice that he starts to move a little bit, and I give him the signal. Comes up, grabs the water bottle, takes it to the back of the room, refills it, comes up, sits on my desk. I get to end that scene with, hey, good job, thank you. Lots of positive affirmation for these kids, right? But here's a little key. Don't do that overt praise. Oh, buddy, you did such a good job. Because you know what it sounds like? Fake. It sounds like this. We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you just did, so let's have a party. My praise for strong-willed kids is very low-key. It's a nice job. Like how you did that. And I often do it as drive-by praise. I'm planting a lot of seeds. Like how you handle that situation. I don't stand there and look at them and be like, I just want to tell you what a good choice you made, because it's awkward. And they're like, you're a good dad too, right? Like, I don't need the response. I'm throwing in a lot of seeds. I like praising for facts, right? Of little things like, oh, you've always been good at adding numbers in your head. So you can't argue with that, right? It's not up for debate. It's just I'm throwing out a little fact. So he comes up, does the job, and here's why I like it. I gave him a very specific job to do. I didn't say, hey, little guy with ADD brain, if you get bored in my class, just run around. Very specific. Get the water bottle, take it to the back. It took him 23 seconds to do that. I gave him 23 seconds of appropriate movement within my boundaries. Does that make sense? I gave him a concrete tool. He can hold it. He can feel it. My OCD kids, I used to put a red magic marker line on the bottle and say, I need this refilled exactly to that red line. And the OCD kids would be in the back like pouring it out and refilling it. Because that is very settling to them. How many of you, when life feels like it's out of control at night, right? Your kids can't control your kids or your spouse. How many of you go to your kitchen and clean your kitchen sink? Anybody do that? Right? And here's what you're saying. The rest of my life is out of control, but my sink is spotless. And you walk by it all night long because you're like, at least something in my life is in order, and it feels really good. Is this distracting you guys? What kind of cheap water bottles do you buy at Graceway? Jeez. Now I've got to bring my own. All the OCD people. Now, sometimes I'll keep using that bottle and purposefully drip just to irritate people who are kind of OCD, because that's your issue, but I won't do that this morning. So, thanks for the water. So, does that make sense? So, remember for later that kitchen sink moment. Because when your kids are back there refilling that water bottle, here's what it feels like. Because I don't always get along with the other kids. I don't always get invited to the class birthday party. I didn't even know what page of the math book I was supposed to be turned to. But I'm good at doing my jobs. And here's a big note. If you're taking notes, I'd write this one down. I just created a success. I know that sounds dumb. And for many of you who are rule-following, just naturally good people, you're like, well, why wouldn't you do your best? And why wouldn't you just be good? For many of your kids, it is not second nature to them to do that. It's second nature just to push and always push. And if they're always failing, you have to create successes. Otherwise, it will be, their whole childhood will end up just being, why can't you ever do things well? And you're in trouble, and I'm going to take this away. Does that make sense? So creating success is one of my favorite things to do with kids. Let me do one more example. Do any of you have kids who blurt out, right? So, by the way, notice your kids, the very traits that usually irritate you most are the very traits they're going to use in life to be successful. We were out teaching in California, and we had a day off, so we went hiking in Yosemite. I always find the parents of the weird little kids. So we're hiking through the woods, and I'm talking to this family. I'm like, well, tell me about your son. Well, when he was a little kid, he never shut up. All he did was talk, 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 and he memorized useless facts and talked about them. And I was like, what is he doing today? Well, he's the play-by-play announcer for the Boston Red Sox farm team. Guess what he gets paid to do? Not shut up. And because he can memorize weird little facts, he's really interesting on the radio. So there's things that really annoy you and you want to change. Sometimes you have to embrace those and use those. Quick little one. How many of you have kids, and this is more for later, but I'm going to do it now. How many of you have kids who have a weird little obsession over something, right? And we always want to be like, you can't do that. So we were in Dallas, and this family's like, all our son talks about are elevators. Elevators, elevators, elevators. And that's all they want to talk about. And you're like, we got to do homework. We got to get stuff done. I can use that love for elevators, and you have to feed their curiosity. It's really important. So here's 2 ways to handle that. Hey, here's the deal. There's a Hilton down the street. It's got 34 floors and 3 elevators. You get your homework done in the next 45 minutes. I'll take you down to the Hilton. You can ride those elevators for an hour. Or better yet, why don't you grab your backpack? We'll go down to the Hilton. I'll sit you right in the floor of the elevator. You can go right up and down, do your homework. I'll go to the hotel bar for a couple hours, and then I'll come back. When I come back, guess what? Homework's probably going to be done. Why? Because he gets his brain stimulated by going up and down on that elevator, and he probably will meet someone on the elevator who's like, what are you doing in the elevator? And your kids to other people love your kids, right? Because they don't have to live with them. And so, no, it's partly true, and your kids are so curious. And you're like, yeah, your curiosity is fine, but we've got other arbitrary stuff to do, right? You memorize this information you'll never use in life, but your passion that God somehow planted in you, forget that because you don't get grades for it. And you're really going to have to watch that because you're going to have to make some decisions with these kids. What do you value? Right? Do you value what, and we do a lot of training in schools, so I'm not against the schools, but most of what's happening in there is very arbitrary and it's not really useful. Whereas God planted, have you ever thought about this? It's an interesting thought. You don't determine what you're curious about for the most part. You just have an inclination to enjoy something and be curious about it. You didn't wake up one day usually and just say, I think I'm going to be really curious about this subject. It's there. And your kids have it. And the hardest part for you is going to be, how do I feed that passion and still get them through school sometimes? But you've got to feed those passions. So So we've got a kid who blurts out in class because he's a talker, right? And I can't eliminate the talking. I can't do it, but I can help with that. So typically what happens in our class is, what's your name, Patrick Mahomes? Robert. Good, easy name. I don't want to pick on Christian the whole time. So Robert blurts out, and traditional response is going to be, Robert, how many times have I told you not to blurt out in my class? It's rude. If you keep blurting out, you're going to miss I'm going to take away recess, and then everything's negative, and those kids shut down. By the way, let me interject this one, because it just popped in my head. It's a great example. Do any of you have kids who will read right in the middle of their class, right? And they're in math class, and they just pick up a book. And now the teacher's in an awkward position of like, don't read, right? And some of you have that at home, right? Because your kids want to stay up and read in bed or read at the table. Now, personally, if Casey had ever picked up a book when he was little, I've been like, you can read anytime you want. He's an awesome reader now, and that's again why I don't want you to project out. I say it all the time. Casey was virtually useless as a child. He was. He wasn't that great, but he is amazing as a young man. He is a beast. He reads like crazy, but he didn't when he was a kid, so don't project out. So let's say, Christian, back to Christian. Christian's reading a book in the middle of the class. Look, this stuff, it's not so much about the child as how we view things. Because typical response is, Christian, it's math class. Put away your book. Put away your book. If you don't put away your book, I'm going to confiscate it. And that child right then, and forgive me for the language, you know what he's going to say? Screw you. For the rest of the year, I will be difficult on purpose. Screw you. And I know for the good people out there, you're like, why? Why can't you just put the book down? It's not that hard. And I agree with that. But if you're wired like this, that's not how they think. So watch, same situation, same amount of time taken, and watch the difference in how I address him. Christian, you know what I love? I love that you're curious. You read because you're curious. It's math class right now, so you got to put away the book. But after lunch, I'll give you 2 minutes to talk to the rest of the class and tell them what you're reading, because I want everybody else to be as curious as you are. See, now I just built the kid up. He put his book away. Does that make sense? I'm not allowing him to get away with it, but I interjected, you're going to put the book away. But I'm giving an opportunity, and now I built him up because the fact that he's reading is a really good thing. But it doesn't always fit within the rules. And you're going to have to determine your home, especially Christian families sometimes really struggle with this stuff, because if you grew up in a very law-based environment, you're going to have all these little things and all these little rules, and you're really going to have to decide, like, is that really important, or am I just doing that because I don't want to be embarrassed, right? Or because I grew up like that. And so you're going to have to wrestle with your spouse over what do we enforce and what don't we. I'll do this a little bit later, but like chores. Casey was not good at he never did his chores. He was not a chore kid. How many of you have like multiple kids? Okay, so if you have a strong-willed, here's how it's going to work. We want each of our children to do the same number of chores. Not going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. I give the kids chores. Your little Robert isn't going to do his chores. He's going to pay his brother to do some of them and manipulate his sister. And your appropriate response is, Robert, that's good thinking, because doing chores is boring and stupid. But you love money, you love talking, you love getting out in the neighborhood and making money, and with that money, you pay your brother to do some of your chores. That's called delegation. And guess what? You're going to do it one day when you own your business, because God knows nobody's ever going to hire you because you don't like authority figures. So, good training, not funny, true. Raise your kids according to the way they're made. Most of your strong-willed kids are not going to grow up and sit in a nice little corporate thing in a seat all day. So you got to train them. And because you're so good at arguing and thinking, and because, look, everybody in here thinks your kids are manipulative, right? True? They're manipulative. I see it as influence. With your insight into human nature, because you're a good thinker and you observe people, you manipulate your sister to do your chores. The real issue that you have is with your daughter, because you need to tell her you need to have some self-respect and speak up for yourself and demand that he pay you to do the chores and stop being a people pleaser. Because if you don't, you're going to grow up and marry a controlling man, which is what 40% of the women in here did. Who did that? Don't raise your hand. Stop, not right in front of everybody. So, look, there's other women who are like, oh, I'm glad I didn't raise my hand, but I married a controlling man. So, it's just what happens. That's what my wife did. She married a controlling guy. You know why? Because we'll do that in the marriage one. Perfectly imperfect. My wife's the people pleaser, doesn't speak up for herself. So guess who that attracts? Me, right? We're perfectly imperfect. So we'll do that later. It's awesome. So please don't raise your hands from now on if your husband's sitting next to you. So who married a jerk who mistreats them? I did. Okay, good. I'm just kidding. That's not what she's saying. You just need to work on your stuff. So, and you need to learn how to speak up for yourself. You're not married? Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, it was her ex. Good one. So, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Let's keep going. So I come in with the blurting out and watch the conversation. Robert, you know why I love having you in my class? Because you're a good thinker, man. You've got this busy brain. It's always thinking of ideas. You're like a junior Thomas Edison. And so here's what happens. You get one of your ideas, but then you're afraid you're going to forget it because you struggle with short-term memory. How many of your kids struggle with short-term memory? Okay, it's not a disorder. They make everything a disorder. You have short-term memory disorder. It's not a disorder. See, if I ran the world, the note I'd send home from a teacher would be to all the compliant kids, parents. I'm really concerned about your son. He literally sits there and waits for me to tell him what to do. He's got no initiative. He colors within the lines, no creativity, right? He never speaks up because he's afraid to share his ideas. He won't blurt out because he doesn't have any good ideas. I have no idea how he's going to get a job one day. But your strong-willed child, oh, love teaching that child. Do I really? No, they're a pain. But what I love is this child speaks up. He not only doesn't even color in the lines, he turns the paper over and draws something he wants to draw and then colors it how he wants to. I love the creativity. I love that he pushes a little bit. I love his curiosity. He never stops asking questions. Pain in the butt, but one day after he gets out of jail, he's going to rule the world, and we want that, right? It depends how you view things. So here's the problem with a short-term memory thing. Kids and people who struggle with short-term memory, the way their brains are made, they tend to be better strategic thinkers. That's why your kids are so good at arguing. It's why when you tell them to do something, their first question is, why? And I know your answer is, because I freaking told you to, and it needs to be done. True? You're like, I'm not interested in your creativity and you actually even thinking. Just do what I told you to do. Because we overscheduled you and we don't have time for you to be creative. Just do your stuff, right? And so what we miss with these kids is they actually have an advantage over all the other kids who do really well in school, because all the other kids that do really well in school, a lot of them, they're just following the rules and they're really good. But when you get into the real world, nobody's going to pay you a lot of money just to take directions. Pay you a lot of money because you're going to be a thinker and you're going to be like, I've got a new idea. And you just opened up a new business for me and made me a lot of money. I'll pay you for that because you're the only one willing to risk things and fail because everybody else is too tentative. Does that make sense? So Robert, here's the issue. You struggle with short-term memory and you're going to struggle with that all through school. And so school's going to be a little tougher for you. I'm not making an excuse, but I'm letting them know school's going to be a little tougher for you because school requires that you have good short-term memory so you can memorize stuff for a test. Good news is, after you graduate from school, you never have to memorize things for a test again the rest of your life. So, you're in my class, you get your idea, but then you're afraid to forget it. You're going to forget, and you blurt out my class, and that's unacceptable. See, the difference between the two is, the first is, why do you keep doing that? That's rude. Please watch assigning motives to your kids' behavior and your spouse's behavior and people, the different political parties, right? Well, they just hate America. No, maybe they just have a different viewpoint, right? And that's where we don't talk. We listened to a political conversation at breakfast this morning at the hotel. It was really intense and really bad. I was like, you guys work together. Like, this isn't ending well. So, but they both, you could hear them both, behind all of it was, well, you're obviously stupid. You obviously don't care about our country. I was like, well, that's helpful for your conversation. So, but watch the deciding motive. See, one is you're being rude. The other is that's unacceptable in my class. So I'm not letting you get away with it. So does that make sense? Just watch. By the way, strong-willed kids, watch. You're going to say they're lazy. Some of your kids are lazy, but you know what it usually is? They're just not motivated. See, that's two different things. If I'm not motivated, I just don't want to do it. That doesn't mean I'm lazy. And words matter. Because the more you say like, well, you're just lazy. Okay, next time you ask me to do something, I'm not going to do it. You know why? I'm lazy. You're never on time. Okay, I'm not going to start now. Right? Like all these things, these words are really important that we say. So, Robert, here's the tool I'm going to give you because blurting out my class, and I don't want you to do it. So, imagine this is a ticket. I'm going to call it a talk ticket, a little cardboard talk ticket. I'm going to give you 3 of these every time you come in my classroom. Every day you get 3 talk tickets. Every time you get that impulse to blurt out my class, instead of blurting out, I want you to hold up one of these tickets. I will either say, go ahead, redeem your ticket, share your amazing off-topic idea, because it's always going to be off-topic. I'm a realist. Or zip, because I believe you can hold it until after class. Later that afternoon, Mr. Martin, I want to tell you, there's a new Star Wars game coming out Friday. And he holds up his ticket. And you know, for many of your kids, that's a supreme act of self-control. And watch where the intensity of the adult gets to go now. Robert, you know what was really cool? Back in math class, you wanted to blurt out. You started to blurt out. Then you held up your talk ticket. It's called self-control, my friend. That's how we do it in my classroom. That kid will work his butt off for me in my class. Now, because I believe in him and I'm giving him tools and I'm showing him how to succeed. Now, am I going to get him to stop blurting out entirely? No. When he's little, I might go from 10 times a day to 8 times, and then next year down to 6 times. He'll always blurt out a couple times. And the metric that I use for behavior is progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. As long as I'm getting some progress, I'm good with that. But know that some of your kids are never going to do everything perfectly well. Does that make sense? Okay, so tools, I'll leave it at that with the tools. I really want the conversation between you and your spouse, between you and teachers to be this. When your kids mess up, instead of initially, what consequence are we going to give? Go to, okay, what are 2 or 3 tools we could give our child in order to create successes so we can build success, and then ultimately it's a very virtuous cycle. So let's do a tough discipline one, because last night I did all the soft stuff, that listening to your kids. When do we hammer them? So here's when we do it. I sometimes will declare martial law in my home. I like really tough discipline, but the difference is it's not personal, and I don't lose control of myself. In fact, sometimes the best discipline is very low-key. Hey, Christian, I can hear that attitude right now coming out. Listen, all I want you to know is you may continue to talk to me like that, but if you do, you're probably going to lose all your stuff or your life. Right? There's something very, but there's something very, let me do this one, and I'll do the tough one. So we used to do these camps, so kids would come to our house, 10, 15 kids, and every camp class, there was always a ringleader. There's always one who would start swearing because he wanted to be cool and whatever. And in the early days, I was like, hey, cut it out. You do not effing swear I'm just kidding, I didn't say it. No, you do not swear in my house. And that just emboldened him because now he's getting all this intensity. So one day, I step back and I start to think, why is he doing that? And so I got a little insight, so I went and I sat down next to him. Because traditionally it's like, look, we need to have a talk about your behavior because if you don't stop swearing, you're not going to come to my camp. And he's like, I don't care, your camp's stupid, right? So I came and I sat down next to him. I said, Robert, here's the deal. The swearing stuff, not impressed. I know way worse words in lots of different languages. I could teach you some. I'm not impressed. By the way, I love that little not impressed. It's a really nice kind of low key. So here's what I think. I think you're swearing and doing that because you want the other kids to like you and think you're cool. Inadvertently, though, what's happening is they're not laughing with you, they're laughing at you. Because later when we go to the pool, you're going to be stuck with Mrs. Martin, and she's not fun. And the other kids are just laughing at you. But what I really think you want is you want to be a leader. And I see leadership written all over you, my friend. So, up to you what you want to do. I've got to go get started on lunch for everybody. If you want to come grab me later, I'll show you how to be a leader in my class. And those kids almost always came in and they'd start cooking with me. They'd never come in and say, could you show me how to be a leader? Because that's awkward. But I knew when they came in, that's what they were looking for. And I did that low-key little thing of like, okay, so here's how we're going to handle it from now on. Does that make sense? It's really cool. So let's do a tough discipline one, and I'll do some more throughout the day. One of my favorite things in working with men is men are often men of few words. And a dad in the home will say, hey, Legos need to be off the floor in the next 12 minutes, or I'm going to build a bonfire in the backyard and burn them. And the man will walk away and not say another word, and 12 minutes later, what do the kids see? Smoke coming up from the backyard. And here's what kids learn very quickly. Oh crap, he meant it. Now, I love that example. For all the men in here, don't go home and say, that guy said we get to burn stuff, right? So that's not what I said. You've got to make sure, men, that your expectations are realistic, because most men have expectations of their kids that are way up here, and all your child has ever done is up to here. In between there will represent a lot of frustration and a broken relationship and a kid who knows I can never please my father, and that is not a good thing. That will ruin kids for life, okay? So I want the tools and all of that, but here's why I do like it. Hey, Robert, you got a choice to make. Legos on the floor, 2 options. And look, watch the tone of voice. I'm not making it personal, and it's not this. I need you to pick up. See, as soon as you're like, I need you to behave, oh, you need me to? I'm in complete control. I don't need you to pick them up. I'm good either way. You pick them up, you live to play another day. You don't, I get to pitch them in a bonfire. I'm really good either way. I'm putting the choice on him. You have a choice to make. I can't always, this is a good principle, I can't always tell you what you're going to do, but I can always tell you what I'm going to do. And so when I give him that choice and I walk away, right, I'm putting it in his court. And then the key to the whole story, and I know this is a little bit extreme-ish, kind of, is I don't talk a lot. I just let him know, and then once I have to do the consequence, I just enforce it. So in our curriculum, you'll hear, and I do a lot of them on the little discipline CD, if you get that. I go through this from a number of different angles, but the key is I will tell you one time, and then I will take action. See, what we do is we tell them, and then we tell them again, and then we berate them because they didn't listen the 8th time, and we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and then they get us all wound up, right? And now we're like, I can't believe when I was a kid, all these things. And what I want kids to know is when I tell you something, you can trust me. And I don't make it personal. You know what, how are you ever going to be successful in life if you, I used to say this to Casey, how are you ever going to be successful in life if you can't follow simple directions, right? And I was just killing him every day with little snotty comments instead of just following through and just letting him know, you can trust me. When I tell you something, you can trust me. Does that make sense? Okay, now that's not the only thing I want to do, so don't go home and be like, I'm going to tell you one time. By the way, if you have little kids, they're not going to listen to you the first time. They're not. And I say that for this reason. 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8, some of your kids, even 9. And your strong-willed kids, they're rarely going to listen the first time. And the reason I say that is twofold. One, I want to relieve the pressure off of you as a parent. Because there's this thing of like, well, if I was just a good parent or I was doing it biblically, my kids would listen the first time. What am I doing wrong? Or conversely, I have an awful rebellious child. Because I can tell by emails that come in, I can tell the Christian ones, because the words are always rebellion, right? And they're always really harsh. I'm like, relax with that. So I want to do this example. Let me do one, I want to do this really cool example that'll really kind of push you a little bit. Let me do a couple more really tough ones, and then we'll go to first-time obedience, because that's a big deal in the church. And anyway. So, look, very even matter of fact, I may have done this one last night. Look, you have 3 chores to do. I give you 3 chores to do. In return for your 3 chores, I run 3 services in this home. Meal service, taxi service, laundry service. Right, moms? Pretty much feed them, take them places. So, I just let them know. A lot of nonverbals. 3 chores, that's all I'm asking. In return, feed you, take your place, do your clothes. So, kids don't do their chores. No long lecture about how irresponsible. So when they come to you, you're like, Mom, I've got my soccer practice tonight. 3. You know what they're going to do? They're going to chop your fingers off in the middle of the night because they're going to get tired of the 3, right? Seriously? You're not going to take me to soccer practice because I didn't do my stupid chore? Nope. And the tone, modern day families, sometimes moms are too sweet. Well, honey, any lecture that starts with, honey, it's really important that, you may as well just drink, because nothing really happens good after that, right? It's really important that kids learn to listen to that's all these long-winded, they don't care. And what I want them to know is, the tone is, don't mess with me. Now, sometimes in non-Christian, I'll say, the tone is, don't F with me. Right? Now, don't go home, not you're just saying that word, like, don't F with me. That's what the parenting guy said, or I'm going to burn your stuff, right? No, but the tone is, don't mess with me. Because I'm okay with you being upset with me. I just want you to know, if you don't do it, this is what happens. I'm okay with your tantrum. Look, if you want to throw a tantrum, I told all the kids came to our house, I have 2 rules for tantrums. First rule is this: we do everything with excellence in our home. If you're going to have a tantrum, do it well, right? Don't hold back, because my second rule is your tantrums accomplish nothing. I'm an immovable brick wall. Your mood is great phrases. Your mood does not determine or change my mood. That's hard because your kids' moods do change your moods, and that's your issue. True? Own it. Your behavior does not change my behavior. If you want to have a tantrum in the middle of church so that you try to embarrass me in front of all the other parents because you're wailing on the floor, not going to work. I'm responsible for my behavior. The only time I get embarrassed is when I roll around on the floor in the middle of church because you're melting down, right? Or in public. And when I'm firm like that and they know that I'm not going to react, it stops a lot of these things. Does that make sense? It's really interesting. I can't do all the examples. Let me do this one and then I'll do the really tough one. This is going to be a little softer one. I work with a lot of families with adopted kids, and a lot of adopted kids steal stuff. They steal, they lie, and it's just in there for a lot of different reasons. So here is the question. So example. So there's a kid who's, a lot of strong-willed kids do this. At night, he would get up like at midnight, and he'd go downstairs, and he'd like take food. And the parents actually put locks on the cabinets, right? And it sounds a little bit extreme, but when you have certain kids, like, got to lock stuff up. And so the kid's doing this. So look, there's one of two, there's only 2 real options. Cut it out. It's wrong. You don't get up in the middle of the night, you don't steal. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? But it's not going to do anything. So this is a little softer approach, but I think it works. This is when I go with that I'm curious thing. And this is a great father-son thing to do where you're going for a walk. And the conversation is like, Robert, I know you know it's wrong to get up in the middle of the night and take stuff. I know you know that's wrong. But I'm curious. I'm curious. What is it that drives you and compels you to do that? And sometimes with these kids, if you ask them, they're going to be like, I don't know. So I try to lead them a little bit and say, is it stimulating? Is it kind of fun in a way to plan this out? Because your strong-willed kids get bored very easily. And one of the reasons they do things to get in trouble is they like the brain stimulation. It's the 3rd column on that chart that you have in the handout. And they like the brain stimulation. And so I identify that and say, is there a certain thrill that you get from getting up in the middle of the night when everybody else is sleeping, walking downstairs? And I try to draw them out. What does that feel like? Does it feel good? It's kind of exciting, right? Because bread stolen in secret is exciting, right? Like doing that is kind of fun. And do you like the challenge of picking the lock? Because they do. And do you like the challenge of trying to get away with it? Because they watch CSI, so they're wiping down the little lock with alcohol, right? They do. They're really, really smart kids. And does it feel good inside sometimes to take that thing in the middle of the night and eat it? And then plan how you're going to get around it. And sometimes you'll hear from kids, they'll be like, yeah, I like the thrill of it. And I like the thrill of like outmaneuvering adults. And so once I figure out what's going on, I can say, I get that. Get that. That makes sense to me. It's wrong. I'm not excusing it. Does that make sense? I'm not excusing it. But that makes sense to me that you would do that. So here are a couple options. You can keep doing that if you want, but I'll always figure it out. And I don't tell him I've got cameras in the house because he'll disable them. It'll be like Ocean's 11 or whatever that one was, right? And they're very good at that stuff. I'm going to find out. God will always know. And you have to live with that thing of like, you're going to get in trouble. So here's another option. What if we took all that brain energy that you're expending and emotional energy and put it into building a little business and then giving away a lot of your money to charity to help people? Or what if we put it into starting to do service projects for people? Because we could figure out some thrilling ways to do that that would meet that same need in a positive way rather than using it in a negative way. Does that make sense? Softer approach, but sometimes that hardcore thing, like, stop that, won't work with these kids. So let's do this example to wrap up this part. It's this. Help me honestly, raise your hands, because there's no right, wrong answer. How many of you were led to believe the way you were raised, kids are supposed to be immediately obedient? Okay, fairly common. Caveat, this represents my opinion, not the opinion of the church. So it may be different, which means they're wrong. And so I'm just kidding. No, I'm speaking for myself, and I don't want to step on the pastor's toes here, but I think this is a neat way to look at it. So that's how I grew up. I grew up with immediate obedience, right? And so when we had Casey, I would go into his room and say, Casey, listen, 3 chores. I want these 3 things done right now. A, then B, then C, move. And his appropriate response was supposed to be, why, of course, Father. I wasn't texting or playing video games or having fun. I was hoping you'd give me additional chores so I could learn the value of hard work and responsibility, sir. That's what I wanted to hear. How many of you want to hear from your kids? Of course. Guess what? The strong-willed child is never going to say that. Here's what they're going to do. Duh. Chores are stupid. Why don't you do the chores? How many of you have found that you do the chores for your kids? Sometimes it's a little bit easier, isn't it? And you'll be like, are we letting them get away with things? You're like, no, we're just not murdering our child, so we did that for him, right? Look, you guys already know I didn't do. You got to be consistent and follow through. I like that, and you have to, but for the strong-willed kids, it's usually not enough because they don't care, right, what the consequence is. So anyway, they're going to be like, duh. And that's when you're like, you know what? You're not only going to do your chores, you'll do it with a smile on your face. And then we try to control how you do it. I think I mentioned last night, I used to tell Casey, I don't care if you're miserable. I don't need a good attitude. I just expect you to do it. If you're miserable raking leaves, I'll pop some popcorn, pull up a lawn chair, watch you be miserable in the backyard. Doesn't matter to me. I just want it done. So I began doing it a different way with all the kids who came in the house, and it sounded more like this. Hey, Robert, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. I want these 3 chores done by 7 o'clock. Don't care what order you get them done, how you get them done. 3 chores, 7 o'clock. And then I'd remove myself from the room very, very quickly. I remove myself for 2 reasons. 1, I expect pushback. I expect it from the strong-willed child. Your kids the entire childhood may never say, yes, ma'am, right away. Casey never did when he was a kid. I wouldn't do it. Chores are stupid. You know why they do it? Partly because they're wrestling with it and they're disappointed they don't want to do it, and partly because it irritates you and they know it. And what they're trying to do is draw you into a little fight about what attitude they can and cannot have in your home. When I was a kid, I never did this to my father or I would have gotten beaten. And they just want to do that. I do not believe in immediate obedience, and I'll tell you why. Let's look at Scripture, because sometimes that's a good place to look. God calls Moses out of a burning bush. Moses, go lead my people. What did Moses do? Argued with God. I don't have a good speaking voice. God's like, I'm speaking to you out of a burning freaking bush. That was my translation, right? Out of a burning bush. I think I could give you the words. I know, but I didn't take the Covey leadership seminar. I'm not a good leader. God got so frustrated, he threw that, right? He got frustrated with Moses. Moses was not immediately obedient. How about Abraham? Abraham was not immediately obedient. He had sex with another woman and spawned a lot of fun stuff in the Middle East. What about King David? He was a man after God's own heart, except when he was after hot Bathsheba. Adultery and had her husband killed. Jacob, a father of our faith, conspires with his mother to deceive his father, steals the birthright. Horrible person. True? And yet God chooses to use them. Wrestle with that sometime. God used a lot of really bad people. He didn't use all the good people, because sometimes good people are too timid. He used Jacob, deceiver. Isn't that his name? His name's Deceiver. Okay, Deceiver, you're going to be a father of the faith. That's why I kind of believe in Scripture. Because if I was God and I wanted to have a religion, I wouldn't choose such screwed up people as my, do you know what I mean? King David, he's an adulterer and a murderer. Does that make sense, right? So, this one will get you. Jesus, the night before he's crucified, Father, if this cup may pass from me. What's he really asking? Can we do it another way? If I go to the cross, I'm going to be separated from you. Can we do it another way? And watch the words that followed. Nevertheless, not my will be done, but yours. What does nevertheless mean? It means he was wrestling with it. Does that make sense? Here's a good parable. I'm going to do, when I do the sermon tomorrow morning, we're going to do the prodigal son. It's really, really instructive. But here's a good parable. I think it's Matthew 21. Father has two sons. Sons, go into my vineyard, do my work. The one son was, of course, Father, I love vineyard work. He was the Eddie Haskell of his day. Only he didn't go and do the work. The other son, vineyard work, stupid. That's your child. And in the parable, Jesus says, the immediately obstinate son, later, changed his mind, went into the vineyard, did his father's work. Which of the two sons was obedient to his father's will? The mouthy one, who initially resisted. Does that make sense? So you're not to, it'll blow your brain apart to see. So I give space for kids to be disappointed, and your strong-willed kids, that's why I was like, Robert, 3 tours, 7 o'clock, and I'm out of there. I give him some space because I don't want to stand over him, and let's talk about your attitude. How many of you, when you're having a bad day, your spouse comes home, and you had a bad day, and your husband stands over you, he's like, I don't know why you're having a bad day, you just need to be grateful. Oh, honey, thank you for the insight. No, you're angry, you need a little bit of space. So when I step away, here's what else it is. It's the idea of ownership, which I'll develop a little bit more in the next session. I don't let kids control my home or classroom, but I give them ownership. Ownership to me is this. I create a big box for kids to live in, and I say, here's your box. I have very clear rules, very clear expectations, very clear boundaries. But within this big box, I will give you some space to do things and do them differently than I would do them, as long as we accomplish the same task. Does that make sense? It's not if you're going to do your homework. Oh no, homework's getting done. Just don't care how you get it done. If you want to do your homework listening to music, sitting in a closet, standing at the kitchen counter, listening to music, eating a snack while you're doing your homework, that's good for many of your kids, ADD kids, go for it, right? I don't care how you get it done. Ownership is this. Do you mind if I go, Pastor, do you mind if I go over a little bit as long as I shorten it up the next time? You guys good? Because I'd rather go a little bit longer at first, and then later you're going to get tired. And I'll finish these thoughts. So I have 2 daughters. My 2 daughters here. And love one and weekend one. Weekend, you're going to be the mean one who said something mean to her sister. And so my natural response is going to be, young lady, you need to apologize to your sister right now. If you have a strong-willed child, here's what you're going to get. No. If you don't apologize right now, I'm going to take away everything you own. Fine. Sorry, stupid sister. How many of you get that, right? And then half of you are like, pretty close to an apology. I think I'll take it, right? And you're going to have to grade on a curve with your strong-willed child because they're not going to do everything the right way and the way their siblings do it. And you don't want to compare siblings because then you get Cain and Abel. So what if ownership, what if I go up to my daughter and I say, I just walk up next to her and I say, hey, honey, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing to do. And then I walk away and drink because that's really hard. I don't advocate drinking, don't do it. But I remove myself from her and I give her some space. Now, here's the hard part. She's not going to apologize even tonight. So you're going to be lying in bed talking to your spouse saying, are we raising a sociopath? It's not that hard. Tomorrow morning, remember last night we talked about that when you're ready, gives her some space to own it. If I demand something from a strong-willed child, not happening. I said with some respect, I know you know the right thing to do. Why? Because she knows the right thing to do would apologize. Why? Because you've modeled it 150 times in your home. Tomorrow morning, she will get up and do something thoughtful for her sister as an act of contrition. And your appropriate response is, young lady, shows me you're growing up. Well done. But here's the hard part. She'll never use the words, I'm sorry. Why? Because you want it so badly. But you have to use the words. You have to say, no, she showed contrition. Because look what we do. You need to apologize right now. Fine, I'm sorry. I just forced an apology versus leading her to contrition. By the way, in case I forget it later, and please help me not forget it, humility with a strong-willed child. You are going to want to drill these kids. Their little attitudes, little thing. You want to be like, you know what? You better get your little butt up in bed. You're going to want to go after them because sometimes their attitudes are really horrible, and you're like, you're challenging my authority. I will tell you that humility is a very, very powerful tool that will change their hearts quicker than anything else. But it's going to require humility from you. Because that time where you want to go in and lay down the law, and I'll do an example later, you show some humility and it will break down that wall inside their hearts, and they can be the most loving, awesome kids you will ever have. At the same time, they can curse you out and they have huge hearts. True? And they're really interesting kids, so that's ownership. One more ownership and I'll finish this example. So this is a good fun one. Morning routine, okay? So I wake Christian up, or I tell him, hey, say, Christian, here's how it works in our home. The school bus comes or carpool leaves every morning, 7:22 a.m. I have one goal for you every morning. Be on that bus in that car, 7:22. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care what's in your stomach. If you're smart enough to wear the clothes to bed that you're going to wear to school the next day, you can sleep until 7:21. Roll out of bed, grab that Pop-Tart that I know you hoard underneath your bed. You can run out to the school bus. You don't even have to have your shoes on. I don't care. We live in Kansas City, not Canada. You're not going to die. And if at the end of the day he makes the school bus, my appropriate response is, nice job making the bus. Now, what's the hard part? I hate the way he gets ready in the morning. I want him to get up early so I'm not anxious. I want to get some exercise. I want him to eat blueberries and avocado so he has some good healthy fat so his brain's ready to learn. I want all those things. But moms, how many times has this happened that your kids don't eat the right way, that you lectured them and they said, Mom, I didn't realize that what I was putting in my body was so unhealthy, but after you lectured me for the 14th time and showed me the food pyramid, which is all wrong anyway, I'm motivated to eat healthy. It doesn't work that way. The more you get on them, look, this is a good insight. The more you care about something and the more you want it, you know that because you're a difficult person yourself, right? You know it. You don't want to do things because other people want you to. You want to own it, true? And the beautiful part is, once they own stuff in life, they own it for good. And they're going to press on your faith and they're going to push. And if you get defensive, it's going to drive them away because it sounds like you're not confident in your God. God's not shaken when people like challenge him. He's not, oh, I can't believe, look what I did for you. Be confident in it. When they come to it themselves, because of the way you've modeled it, they'll own it, right? Look, if he doesn't eat something healthy in the morning, guess whose stomach it affects? His. So in third period, his stomach's going to hurt. Now, strong-willed kid's not going to give in that easily. He's going to steal other kids' food. So, the appropriate response is, it's called being resourceful, my friend. It's a good skill. Don't worry. How many of your kids won't wear their jacket or want to wear shorts in the morning? Can I give you some advice? Let it go. It doesn't matter. because you're just going to lie to them. Honey, you can't wear shorts. You need to wear a jacket or you're going to catch a cold. That's a lie. You don't catch a cold from cold weather. It's from germs. The truth is, I don't want the other parents or teachers to think that I'm a bad mother letting my child go to school in shorts when it's 25. And that's because you're immature and you're embarrassed, which is your issue, and you need to grow up. True? So, you know I say that with a little bit of love. So, no, it's true. Stop fighting them over stuff. They're smart. If they get cold at the bus stop, they'll steal another child's jacket. They're going to figure it out. Do what? He did that. Good. I mean, he's not stupid. He's immoral, but he's not stupid, okay? So, I'd rather have a smart, immoral kid than a really moral, dumb kid, right? So, I've never thought about that, but probably true. Look what Jacob did. He stole the birthright. Smart kid. That is kind of interesting, isn't it? Nice child you're raising there. So, and you call yourselves Christian. Oh, they go to that Graceway. Grace because they give grace for kids who steal jackets from poor kids. Anyway, so, did I get paid yet? Darn it. I need to require that. I did that session with social workers yesterday. I was like, oh, I don't think we got paid. I'm not sure if I'm going to get paid for it. Anyway, so it's not why I do it. I have a big heart, but I do like money. So, I do, you know what's funny with your kids? And I do have this vision in the church. Because the church has problems with money, right? Like, oh, money's evil, money's evil. You know what my vision is in church is in order to not have all the nonprofits. Because I have friends who are like, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And I was like, well, yeah, now you're going to have to, you don't want to. Now, I support a lot of nonprofits, but with my best friend growing up, where I was like, you just don't want to work. You want to follow your heart. Well, we do all the work, and then you get donations from us. My vision is for your kids is to grow up to be such good entrepreneurs, because being an entrepreneur means you serve other people. You serve and meet needs and teach them how to make money. Because with that money, then give away a lot of money. Does that make sense? The best entrepreneurs, all my Christian friends, give away an extraordinary amount of money. We like making it, but we don't spend it. We live really cheaply. And then we can fund entire ministries. I hope that doesn't sound weird, right? But I have that vision for the church instead, like, I need your money. It's like, no, I'm such a good entrepreneur, because we do these homeschool conventions, and a guy gets up and speaks before me and is like, well, our ministry is really important. If you would buy our stuff, it would really help us. And then I get up and I'm like, I don't need your help. I want you to buy my resources because they're going to help your family, because there's great value. And I want you to actually spend a lot of money on them, so you invest. And then when you buy it, I don't advertise what we give away, but it enables me to give away a lot of money because I charge you so much. Anyway, I'm just kidding. No, but it's because we're good. Because look, doing things for free, those guys, and he's one of my best friends in the homeschooling circuit, I talked to him like, you're asking people to give you money because you're doing such good work. Well, I'm able to do good work, but I charge for it, and that causes me to have to make my materials really, really good so that they're valuable to people. Does that make sense? And so don't be afraid of your kids and their love for money, because it's not that love like bad love. It's they're drawn to it. They like the challenge of it, but they have huge hearts. My biggest problem with your kids when they make money is getting them to keep some of it and reinvest it back in their businesses, because they want to give all of it away. And so teach them how to be wise with it. And I'd love for the next generation to grow up and have all these Christian businesses that are funding all kinds of cool stuff anyway, I hope that makes sense. So, the reason I love that example is with the jacket and everything else is I'm giving him ownership. And he eventually, when he determines that eating healthy food is good for him, he's going to do it. Doesn't mean you don't feed them healthy food. Do it, but stop worrying. So let me finish up this story, and then we'll take our break, okay? Is it good so far? Okay, so I told you, 3 chores, 7 o'clock, remove myself so I don't hear all your stuff. And because I know he's not going to do it my way. I want it done A, then B, then C. And we say this all the time. Do the A, then B, then C. It's the most efficient way, effective way to do it. If you start with the hardest thing first, you'll get the hardest thing done, get it out of the way. How many of you do this all the time on the weekends? Look, if you just get your work done now, you'll have the rest of the day, right? And it almost never works because it's very rational. By the way, write this down if you have an ADD kid, please. It's not about managing their time, it's about managing their energy. They don't manage time. I don't manage my time. I manage my energy. I work in spurts. My wife works 9 to 5 evenly throughout the day. I hit it hard, inspiration, hard, and then I take a break. And then I hit it hard and take a break. And many of your kids are going to do schoolwork that way. And you have to learn how their energy flow works. Casey does his whole day around morning time, good thinking time. When he gets that afternoon lull, he goes and works out because the endorphins kick in. He thinks better. Late afternoon, when he's downtime and not thinking that well, he does like rote work where he doesn't have to think. Teach them how to manage their energy, not their time. It's really, really important. So I walk away. 3 chores, 7 o'clock. I ask him at 4:30. Now, 5 o'clock, has he done anything? Nope. 6 o'clock, he's still laying on the sofa. You don't even drink, but you popped open the first bottle of wine. Why? Because your kid doesn't do anything. He's lazy there. It's 6:30. Has he done anything? No, he's still laying on the floor. You're reminding him, hey, buddy, do you want me to start the lawnmower? How many of you start the chores for your child, hoping they'll come in and take out? Right? It's just the way it works. I used to start, I'd be like, hey, I'll do the outside edge first, and then you come, and then I just did the whole thing. So at 6:34, child finally gets up and starts doing his chores. How many of you, your first thought is going to be, he only left 26 minutes to do his 3 chores. Now he's going to do a half job, right? Because you're projecting out, if you don't do everything with excellence, right? By the way, that phrase of you need to do your best at everything, that's a lie. Stop with that. Because that's hurting do everything to the best of your ability. You can't do everything to the best of your ability. You do the right things to the best of your ability. True? And we get that thing of like, if you would just apply yourself, that will cause a kid to shut down right away. Because how many women in here would allow me to get away with saying this? If you would just apply yourself, you'd be thinner. Yeah, didn't think so. Because what's the implication? You're not even trying to lose weight. So we've got to drop. Those are all parenting anxiety words because your kids aren't living up to your expectations. But you can't do the best. Most of your kids are going to do the minimal work necessary. How many of those kids? Just to get by. And if you have the courage, you can say, you know what's brilliant about that? You're in middle school. You know, middle school grades don't count in middle school. So why would you do extra effort when you don't even care about what you're studying? You're brilliant enough to do the minimal work necessary just to get by. That's actually really smart. Because what I know in life is when you do care about something, you work really hard at it. You just don't care about anything I care about. And that's why I'm freaked out. True? So you've got to draw the distinction there. When your kids care about something, they can focus, they're disciplined, they're persistent. True? When they're playing video games or building with Legos, you don't have to tell them a second time. They can do it for days on end without sleeping. It's just when you ask them to do something, So we'll get to that in the next session, how to motivate them. So here's the hard part. I asked him to do A, B, and C. What's he going to do first? C. Why? I don't know. They're irritating. After he does C, what's he going to do? No, not A or B. He's going to do Z. I didn't ask you to do Z. Somewhere on the line from going to C to B, he walked by the bathroom and he thought, be interesting to take the toilet apart and not put it back together. How many of your kids do that stuff? This is really supremely important. Your kids have to follow their curiosity. Sometimes they have to take that toilet apart. And I know they're not going to do their chores, they're not going to do the homework, and you're going to have to talk to the teacher and say, I know you love my child. We didn't do homework last night. You know why? Because my son got really curious about something and actually built himself a robot. So I know he doesn't do that well in your class, but one day he's going to be like an AI genius, and we're going to retire wealthy because of him. Right now, he's not going to do a whole lot. He's probably going to be bad in class. But some nights I'll let him pursue his curiosity, right? That's that elevator story. Does that make sense? So for your compliant people out there, you would have had all your chores done by like 4:45. And you go to your parents and say, oh, can I have some more? But here's the thing. Your strong-willed kids have to do Z. See, people who do Z do cool things, like invent iPhones. Compliant rule followers, you never do anything cool in life, but you make sure these ship on time And that's important too. So we need both. You know what I'm saying. So it was meant to be funny. But anyway, but it's true, right? You need both. So finally, at 6:59 and 59 seconds, no, he does B. B was sweeping the floor. Your child's going to put the broom behind his back and go backwards, and you're going to be furious because you can't get all the crumbs on the floor that way when you're doing it. This is the appropriate way to do it. And at 6:59, 59 seconds, he does A. And your appropriate response is, Robert, nice job doing your chores. This is what you're going to have to wrestle with. They're not going to do it the right way. I know some of you are like, well, that's just an excuse. I've done this a long time. That's how they do it. And what we eventually wrestled with Casey was, he stinks in our house. He's virtually useless for us. But outside the home, from the age of 12, he had a job, extremely reliable, worked really hard, and other people loved our son, even though we didn't. And we're raising him to be successful in the real world, and we wrestled with it, and you will have to wrestle with it because you have the other siblings who do all their chores the nice way, and they're all awesome, and teachers love them, and this one child is going to be like off to the side, and you have to know and trust that this child eventually is going to find his path, but it's going to be a very difficult path, and they're going to touch a lot of hot stoves, but they're going to be successful. But if you don't do that, if you stay on them, you will crush their spirits, they will become very defiant, and they will eventually shut down. Does that make sense? So in the next sessions, I'm going to bring some more balance to this, but I want you to take a break. I'm 14 minutes late, and I'll make that up in the next one. Any other announcements we need to make, or just like a quick break? Take a quick break, use the restroom. If you want to ask me questions, they'll turn off the mic. Come on up, and I'll try to address that. But move. Go ahead and move. Use the restroom. Do whatever you need to do. If you need help with our products at all, Casey's back there. See him. But anyway, thank you all for being patient with me. it's like an ADHD kid who's doing this in class. Test, 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 test. Am I on? Oh, there we go. So as people are coming back in, a couple questions I got during the break. I encourage you to observe your kids. Observe your kids. They will tell you everything they need by what they do. I don't always need a diagnosis. If I see kids' legs are bouncing all the time, maybe ADHD, I don't know, but all it tells me is they need to move a little bit, so I give them opportunities. Kids with sensory issues. If I notice kids who are always kind of pushing up against stuff, or they come home from school and they like being under things in confined, any of you have those kids, like kind of being in confined spaces? I don't necessarily need to say, well, it sounds like sensory processing disorder. All I know is it must feel good on their bodies. So, 3 things for those kids. One is sleeping at night. I'll put them in a sleeping bag, shove them in a closet. Don't tell anyone you're doing that. They will often sleep so well because they like being wrapped up in something confined. I let them do, ask the teachers to allow them to do their schoolwork, take tests, do schoolwork, sitting underneath their desk at school. Some of your kids, it's a phenomenal thing. Do homework under their desk. So we had this cool thing that I did with these kids at my house, and this will fall under like the meltdown, how do you calm kids down? So I noticed a lot of these kids, do any of you have kids who will take the cushions off the sofa and then lay down on the hard part of the sofa? And it's weird. And so that's one of those things like, why do you do that? And you have to be curious. And so when kids were melting down in my home sometimes, if they were like that, I had a code word, 1-word code word, sofa. And their job was to go in the living room, throw the cushions off the sofa, because I knew they weren't going to place them down nicely when they were upset, throw them off, and they would lie down on the hard part of the sofa. I would then go into the living room, put the cushions on top of them, and sit on top of them. It was instantly calming for a couple reasons. One, it's weird. 2, the physical pressure felt really good for them, and I wasn't looking them in the eyes. Does that make sense? So I'm sitting on top of them, and it's calming, and now we can have a great talk. So really observe and use that. So a good question was, so you've got multiple kids, and this strong-willed child isn't going to do the same things as the other kids. That's not fair. How come you let him get away with things, and yet we have to do all these things. And so that's a great opportunity to teach that life's not fair, suck it up and deal with it, that's fine. But where I really go with kids is to say, look, and this is going to be a little bit harsher approach, but I like it with kids. I'm a big fan of being very, very honest and direct with kids, especially strong-willed ones, because they can take it. You know, true? You like that's why, forgive me, I'm a little bit rough sometimes in how I present, and sometimes my language isn't good, and so don't blame the pastor. That's on me. Forgive me for that. But I deal a lot with people like you who like that and respond to it, and sometimes it's like, well, honey, here's what you need to do. She's like, I don't want to hear it. But if I go up to her and I drop a few swear words and tell her to grow up and stop acting like a kid, she's like, got it, sir, I'm good. And so that's kind of where I fall with it. Anyway, so with those kids who are like, it's not fair, you're not disciplining him, you're not a good parent, it's not fair, you let him get away. Here's my talk. So let's talk about fairness. Here's what's not fair. It's not fair that you were born in such a way with a brain that makes it easy for you to get your homework done quickly, because you come home every day and you knock it out. Your brother has a brain that's wired in such a way, it's very busy up there. It takes him 3 hours to get things done. You know what else isn't fair? It's not fair that you connect really easily with other people. You've got friends at school, you get invited to sleepovers. Ever notice that your brother never gets invited to sleepovers? You know what else isn't fair? And I go down the line. At the end of it, I say, so if you want to talk about fairness, we can talk about fairness, but I think we should talk about gratitude, you little snot. Right? I'm just kidding with that, but does that make sense? I'd rather talk honestly. I don't want to go to the other kids and say, you know what? Your brother has some issues, and I'm not making excuses. Just say, look, he's wired complete. His brain, the way God made him is completely different from the way that he made you. You're going to sail through life. Stuff's going to be easy for you. People like you. Teachers like you. You want to walk a day in your brother's shoes? Ever notice that he's in trouble all the time? Ever notice it's difficult for him to connect with people? So yeah, you want fairness? We can go fairness. But it's not fair that you were made in such a way that things are much easier for you. Does that make sense? I like being honest with kids, because now I just gave you some perspective, and it's up to you what you do with that. And if you want to grow up and be a bitter, miserable person, I can't change that either. That's your heart you need to manage. And the rule in our home is we control ourselves. I don't control other people, and I don't control you, because you know what you're doing? You're whining and complaining right now. You're starting to be a bitter little kid. You want me, your brother, he doesn't whine. He just steals stuff and doesn't do anything we want him to do. But you better be nice to your brother, because one day he's going to own his own business, and you're going to work for him, right? Because you're already working for him with the chores. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. One quick one, too, is some people have asked about, you're divorced, remarried, and this is very common. One of the your child is, and I don't want to make generalizations, but it's generally true of, in those situations, the divorced dad sometimes ends up being Disney dad. No rules, lets kid do whatever he wants because he doesn't want his child to reject him. And then mom ends up being the disciplinarian. Fairly common. Here's the really hard part. It's virtually impossible for kids to not look at their dad as a hero, even if that dad is not a great person. It's almost impossible. They will overlook 100 flaws of their father because we need our dads to be that. And they were going to reject the mom. And I believe in that case, sometimes you have to speak directly to that child and say, I get it, you love your dad, you've got to love your dad. And so here's what I know. I'm not going to change the way I parent you. And I am going to have rules, and I'm going to enforce it, and I'm going to be tough on you. And what I trust is that in time, you will know that you actually respect that, and you know that you need that from me. Right now, you're probably going to reject me, and you're going to embrace your father. And that's going to hurt a lot, but I play the long game. Anyway, you're probably going to do that, but what I want you to know is, when you're ready, I'm going to be here. And here's what you always know. I'm never going to leave you. I will never forsake you, and I'll always be here for you. Now, is that child going to be like, Mom, I see the light? No, they're probably going to leave for a few years, and they're going to embrace their dad because they have to in a way. But I want them eventually coming back. And all you're going to have to do, you're going to have to cry a lot, and you're going to have to grieve that for a while, but that's the way that it is. But I want you to maintain the relationship, but don't give in, because that won't work either, right? They just need to be with their dad because it's something deep inside kids. So I hope that helps, and we can do some stuff during a break too if you want. So let's do some things on, sorry about that. Defiance, some of those things, motivating kids. Let's do this one. How many of you have the relentless arguer? Good, good, good. So here's a good example of that. They're pretty much made like that, and it's a good thing in the end. But let me do this example. So I come home from work, and Robert comes home from school, and he's like, Dad, you need to take me to GameStop. I want the new video game. Did you just do that? Okay. Typical dad's response is going to be like, you already have all these games you don't play with, and they're going to be like, Dad, thanks for the wisdom, I forgot, right? So I don't do explanations. Hey, not happening today. Always even matter of fact. Now what's going to happen? Child's going to come after you, arguing all the reasons he deserves to get it, all these different things, and you're going to walk away and he's going to follow you, right? And so here's how it works. He's going to follow you, and you're going to walk away, and he's going to keep going, and you're going to go upstairs. You're going to lock your bedroom door. He's going to go outside and climb up through the second floor window, and he's going to come in because that's what they're like. So anyway, here's where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to say, not going to happen. He's going to start arguing, and this is one way to handle it, is say, hey, Robert, listen, I've seen this movie unfold in our home like 43 times this month. Because all these situations happen again and again. So here's how this movie unfolds. All day at school today, you were thinking about that new video game because it's really cool. Probably weren't even paying attention in class because you were thinking about it because all your friends have it and you don't, because your friends have parents who don't love their children because they buy them whatever they want. So you were thinking of all of my objections to getting you the video games. You know why? Because you have good critical thinking skills, and that'll serve you well in life one day. But we're not going to GameStop. So the movie unfolds. You come home. You demand that I take you someplace. I don't do demanding, so I say no. I walk away. You follow me. I close the door. You go up through the second floor window and come in. You know why? Because you're persistent. When you want something and care about something, you are relentless and you do not give up. And I love that quality because a Harvard study showed the #1 quality for success in life is not good grades or good behavior. It is pig-headed determination, and you have it. But we're not going to GameStop. So here's how this movie unfolds every time. And you could skip right to this point. You want something? I say no. You argue with me. I still say no. You keep going and keep going. You eventually say really disrespectful things to me, and you end up in tears. And you not only will not go to GameStop, you will lose all of your other privileges. That's how it ends every time. True? So read. See, it's teaching. Look, I know it's about to happen. You're going to argue and call me names, and you're going to end up in tears, and you're not going to get what you want. So here's ownership. I will give you an opportunity to rewrite the ending to this movie because it never ends well for you. I've got to go get started on dinner because I like the movement. I like to lead him, right? So I've got an idea. You want that new video game. I know you love money. I know you love raking leaves. You love shoveling mulch, doing other things, little kids, walk dogs. I bet if you come downstairs and we use all of that brain energy and that persistence, we could come up with 3 different ways for you to earn some money. And then on Saturday morning, you could use your own money and buy that video game. Choice is up to you. I walk away. Instead of like, why can't you ever take no for an answer? I'm teaching him a different way. Does that make sense? And again, I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to argue, and I'm not going to give reasons why, because he'll just overcome every reason. Let's do a more, let me do this tough one, and I'll do like an emotional one. So this is kind of a famous story that we've told a lot with Casey when he was about 11, and he played ice hockey. And one day, he was kind of getting full of himself, and I said, hey, you need to rake the leaves, got to get it done. And his response was, I don't have to. How many of your kids do that stuff? And you're like, half of you is like, oh, is he going to end up in jail? And then the other half is, I wish I had a little bit of that confidence, right? Because they are like hard-charging kids. He's like, I don't have to. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I can roll with that. So look, I'm good with that, Casey. We've just determined that we don't have to do things for each other in our home. I'm cool with that. And I walked away. And I'm sure at that time he was like, my dad's a pushover. I don't have to do it. Well, what I knew is the next morning he had a hockey game. So the next morning I got up early. I got in my quiet time. Went in, did my walk, talked to God, got a little workout in. So I was ready for him. He was up early because hockey's early when you're little like that. So he comes downstairs. I'm reading the paper like Ward Cleaver. He comes down. He's like, Dad, you got to take me to the ice rink. And I said, I don't have to. He's like, seriously, Dad? Seriously? Those were leaves. I've got a game. You have to take me. No, we established last night that we don't have to do things for each other, and I don't want to go to the rink because it's really cold there, and I'm really comfortable. Now, look, it's not about provoking him. It kind of was a little bit, but I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to do at that time, and I was prepared for it, right? So you know how your kids are. They go from here to here. You know what? This is stupid. You're supposed to be a parenting expert. This is the dumbest thing I've ever... You know what his fallback was? Why anybody would ever buy your CDs, I don't know, right? Like, you don't even know what you're doing. So he always hit me on that. The other thing he always got when we were on the road, we have a little thing of we try to make each other really upset. And he would do it at times. And he'd right before the workshop, he'd be like, Dad, is this what you're going to teach parents tonight, how to control yourself? Because I just lost control of something. So that's how great a relationship we have. And it makes me live it because he calls me out on it and I call him out on it. But anyway, so he's getting furious. This is stupid. This is dumb. Your leaves are dumb. And they pull out the words that you hate. Like, you don't use the word stupid in our home. Guarantees when they get upset, they're going to use the word stupid like 400 times because they know what your triggers are. So he starts stomping away. I have every right to lay the law down. If you would have done what I told you to do last night, we wouldn't be here. Nothing wrong with that, except it's kind of immature and it doesn't work. So next thing I hear, he's in the kitchen, and I hear the whispering. And all the dads know this, which is he's talking to his mom. Mom, you know how Dad is. He's unreasonable, right? And that makes me furious. Like, do not freaking, sorry, I did the freaking thing. Sorry. That is totally myself. Can I tell you something? No, I'm not going to tell you. I just apologize for using that. So you're lucky I didn't use the full word. So anyway, you're not lucky. I'm just bad like that. And I feel really conflicted. So anyway, I gotcha. So he's in the kitchen doing that, and I hear, so my wife peeks out and says, just take him. And I was like, and I remember the moment I said, I love him too much. My advice, honey, is that now would be a good time to maybe run some errands and not come back till maybe tomorrow. Because it's going to be ugly. But I was prepared for it. So he stomps up the stairs, slams the bedroom door. Why? You don't slam my door. You don't have to respect me, but you're going to respect my furniture. How many guys do that one? That's a good one, right? So then he'd come down later, stomping. You know how they do it, stomping and doing all this because they want to irritate you. And you have every right to get up out of the chair and read him the riot act because it's all about him. And I didn't. And that's where humility sometimes comes in, because I knew the end game and what I was looking for, and he just wanted the reaction. And I didn't do it. So he comes down, he's like, stupid leaves. And that irritated me. Why? Because I planted that tree that bore those leaves. It's not a stupid tree. So, finally, oh, he did this one. What if I go rake them up now? Can I go? Not the way it works. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So finally, how many of your kids do that stuff? And here's this other one when he was a kid. Ridiculous. Oh, with so much contempt. How many of your kids do that one? That's my favorite. Ridiculous. There's so much contempt for the parent. The fact that you haven't murdered your children yet means you're good parents. Seriously, there's no excuse for it. But the end game of just like, you're not going to talk to me like that, yeah, they actually are, right? So finally he comes down, fine, I'll rake your stupid leaves. So he goes down to the garage, gets the rake, and I'm watching outside. You know what he's doing? He's not raking up my leaves. He's raking up my lawn because he's doing it so hard, he's pulling up my grass. That's when I had murderous thoughts in my head, right? So, collect myself, go down to the garage, grab another rake, and I go out, right? The old me was like, I'm going to go out and teach him a lesson. How would we like it if God was sitting up there now like, you know what? I think it's time to teach him a lesson. We'd be dead a long time ago, right? So I go out. Now there's tension, right? Because dad and his son raking leaves. So we're raking. I'm trying to actually fix my grass that he's torn up. And I eventually decide to break the ice. Do I have to? No. Shouldn't he be apologizing to me? Yes. But he's so wound up, he's not. And I'm in it for the long haul. So I'm raking leaves, and I break the ice, and I say, Case, remember when you were a little kid? We used to rake up a little pile of leaves and to jump in them. And you know what he did to me? He turned his back to me. You're back to me. And I had an image. Remember Home Alone, the first one, the good one? At the end of it, when Macaulay Culkin runs through the wet bandits, all the water, and he comes up, and Joe Pesci puts him up on that hook, and then the next door neighbor, scary guy, comes and does this. That's what I pictured with my rake. One good crack over his head, put him in a little wood chipper, nobody would miss my son. So I put my rake down, and I go, and I jump in the leaves. And now I'm laying there like an idiot, looking up at the sky. Calm thing, good idea, God. Really like this. How's this working? And I'm waiting for him to humble himself. And finally, Casey comes, jumps in the pile of leaves next to me. Now tense again. Where's the apology? How many of the men of you would be like, apology right now would be a nice thing to do? But I don't, and I wait. And finally, by the way, in that moment, for him to put his rake down and come and jump in the pile, it almost makes me cry. And jump in the pile of leaves, that's his own humility. Do you know how much shame is in that kid at that moment? He knew what he did was wrong. He had called me all kinds of nasty names. That kid knew that what he had done was wrong. I didn't have to point it out. And you know how much humiliation that is? See, that's the beautiful part. When you humble yourself, now it puts it all back on them. And now, when he put that rake down and he decided, I'm going to jump in the leaves, see, it does. Because we fought so much. These moments meant a lot to me because we fought so much. So he wanted the relationship with me. He wanted to be next to his dad. So we're laying in the pile, and now inside I'm like, just apologize, you jerk. Just apologize, you jerk. And finally I get it. Dad, sorry. Shouldn't have said those things to you. And my response was, darn right you shouldn't have. No, I didn't do it. Look, the point is, you have every right to yell. You have every right to lecture him. But you don't have to in that moment, right? Like you're justified, but the humility leads your child to contrition. It's God's humility that leads us to contrition, right? And so when we do that with your kids, I will tell you, the strong-willed child, you will have such a bond with them because that fight will be turned to your advantage. And it's there's such a bond that Casey and I have because we fought so much. And now we fought to be together. We still fight some because we're both kind of have that jerky nature. But anyway, the point is, you can be really tough. You don't give in. I didn't take him to his hockey game, and I didn't have to lecture him. Well, Casey, next time, there's no need for that. Occasionally, when he was doing something, I would say these words. Rake leaves. Remember the raking leaves? And that was it. Rake leaves. And that was a code word in our home for a little while of like, don't mess with me. This is a rake leaves example. Let me do this example for, which one was I going to do? Humility. Let me do one more humility one because I really like it. And then I'll do the, I'm going to do the anxiety one. And then a motivation, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I just forgot. Isn't that funny? I'm really trying to fit a lot in. I'm really trying to give you really good stuff. So one quick humility thing. This is more in the early days. Casey had yelled at my wife, was upset, and went to his room stomping off. And I was just learning this stuff, so I was going after him, because that's what we do. I was going after him up to his room. Well, what happens? I calm myself down, so I start going up to his room, and I trip on some Legos that he had left in the middle of the stairs. Now I'm furious again. How many times do I have to tell you not to leave your Legos in the floor? So now I've got to calm myself down again. So I do it, and I go upstairs, and my true nature is to just barge into his room and read him the riot act, because that's what my dad did. So I'm fighting, all these years I've been fighting the example I had from my dad and what I knew, all of that. So I go up and I knock on his door, and some of this stuff is so going to irritate you. Why do I have to knock on the door? It's my door. I knock on the door. I don't really hear anything, but I go in because I respect his space a little bit. So I walk in the room with the Legos. I've got the little devil on the shoulder, angel on the other one, and the devil, usually a lot of times one, is like, show him the Legos that you left in the middle of the floor and you're going to burn them, because that feels really good. Instead, I sat on the floor and I started building with his Legos, and I didn't say a word. And I got that from Jesus when they brought the woman caught in adultery to him. And he kneeled in the dirt and didn't look at her, avert his eyes from her shame. I want you to know with your strong-willed kids, now this is good because I didn't sleep last night. It makes me a little bit more emotional, but this stuff is good. I promise you, your strong-willed kids have a lot of shame inside of them. They don't wake up every day and think, how can I be bad so everybody hates me? That's what it feels like, because they continually do bad stuff. I'm not excusing that stuff. But they have so much shame, and all they've usually gotten at school and elsewhere is, stop it, or else you're going to lose your stuff. And nobody will come along and understand them and say, you're not just being a bad kid. You just need some tools how to do it differently, right? And so you've got to watch that shame thing in there. So the reason I sat on the floor is because I knew that my son knew what he did was wrong. And I build with my Legos. And again, there's a tension of like, when's he going to come down? Eventually he slinks down off of the bed. Now we're building together. And I like it metaphorically, we're building something. I'd be like, hey, let's build a fire engine or whatever it was, spaceship at the time, whatever. Probably for him it was a gun. Let's build a gun that can kill people. So, because he's a boy, that's what he did. And so we're building something. And you know what? I didn't have to say anything. Because I wasn't staring at him, we were building, he said, Dad, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Try leading kids to contrition. It's a really cool thing. How many of your kids struggle with anxiety of some kind? Okay, if you have your hand out, open up to the second page, please. You'll see a chart with 3 columns. And that first column, just give you a little insight. The kids with very busy brains, everything feels like it's out of control for them. Their bodies even feel out of control when they have sensory issues. And I feel like that at times, as you can probably tell, out of control. And so my natural impulse is to control other people. And that's why they're bossy. How many of you have bossy kids? Okay, so quick example. We're doing these camps, after school camp. Kids come and do homework with me, because parents would pay me anything to do homework time with their kids. And I was patient because they're not my kids. It's easier. So kid comes over to my house, and he comes in, he starts bossing me around. My initial instinct, and it still is this, so don't worry that your initial instinct is something bad. It's how you deal with that, right? So my initial instinct to look at and say, why are you bossing me around? No wonder you don't have any friends, you bossy little jerk. Like, that's what I'm thinking. How many of you think about that about your kids? We do that, right? But I have to step back and think wisdom. I'm here to give wisdom. And what I realized, this kid's at school all day. Literally everything's out of his control at school. He doesn't get to choose anything. People tell him what to do all day long. And you know from being a strong-willed child, that's not fun. Because you've got your own idea, and half the stuff your teachers are doing, you're thinking, that's dumb, stupid, I'm not going to use that. And so wait, that's a huge trigger, by the way. It's a waste of time. With your kids, that's a massive trigger. Now, you're like, well, they don't do anything but play video games. It's not like they manage their time that well, but it's a big trigger for me. I don't like anybody wasting my time.
I mean, I played games, but I read a lot of books.
You read a lot of books. Yeah. Absolutely.
It wasn't wasting my time.
Absolutely. You don't have to justify. You're okay. We love you.
No, it was a
So,
for me.
I'm just kidding. Okay, good.
Parents that didn't read.
Okay, good. So where was I now that you interrupted me?
I'm so sorry.
What was it?
I'm a blurt out, right?
Well, don't justify now your bad behavior. I mean, come on. I mean, there's a little bit of decorum here in a public place. Get it together, lady. So, we're friends. We can do that.
Yeah, kids don't have control.
They don't have control all day. So he comes to my house and there's all these kids and it's loud and it's noisy, another big trigger for many of your kids. So his impulse is to control someone. So in that moment I stepped back and I said, I think I know what's happening. You're at school all day, everything's out of control. You come to my house, it's all chaos here. And so your natural impulse is to control other people. And you know how I know that? Because I'm the same exact way. When I'm tired and when I don't feel well, I get very particular. How many of you do that? And so I'm teaching him. You're not just a jerk, you're an overwhelmed kid. See, I can't fix a jerk, but I can help an overwhelmed kid. So I said, here's what I need some help with. There's that help with a job. Go to the basement. I have a broom that's broken. Find some duct tape, be a little MacGyver, fix my broom for me. It would really help me out. And so what I did was I gave him something he was in control of, that he's good at doing, and he accomplished it. When you give kids stuff they're in control of with those jobs, then they can control themselves. Because, does that make sense? It's kind of a cool process. So here was so you go down that chart and you see like that's why they're bossy, they can't play games, they cheat, they quit, change the rules. All of those things are kind of wrapped up in that. So anxiety comes into play there because anxiety is about unknowns, things you can't control. It's the worst thing in life for all of us, things we can't control. So here's the example. I say, what's your name, Kansas City Chiefs hat dude? Justin, good name. Justin was the son of, we lost a son. His name was Justin. So always, darn it, why isn't your name something else? So, Justin, I'm not going to use your name. I can't do it. I'm too tired. So Christian, good name. So Christian, hey Christian, you want to do Taekwondo this spring? And Christian's like, sure, Dad, sign me up. I come home a few days later. Christian, gotta go, man, gotta go. And here's what we often get. Dad, my stomach's kind of upset. I don't feel good today. Could we just go next week? Promise I'll go. No. Here's what we're going to do. If we leave right now, we'll go to McDonald's. We'll get a Happy Meal. Everybody will be happy. Bribery never works. So then we do this thing. You know what? I paid $135 for that class. Your little butt's going to be there. As if your child's going to say, Dad, I didn't want to go, but now that I know how much it cost you, I'm motivated. They don't care. So the only thing I've left is I'm going to grab him by the forearm and drag him out to the car, and we're going to yell and scream the whole time because when I was a kid, I didn't get to do Taekwondo. It cost me a lot of money. This kid's starving in Africa. A little bit of gratitude would be nice, and I throw out everything I can, just get him in a car, put my hand over the head like they do on the cop shows and push him in the car. Just get in the car. How many of you do that? So along the way, I may get this. No, I'm not going. Taekwondo's stupid. You're stupid. How many of you ever get that from your kids? Lovely being a parent, isn't it? So in the moment, what usually happens is, you know what? You will get your little butt in the car right now. And we step into it and we escalate it. And in the moment, you know what I'm saying? Defiant little snot that makes my life difficult. And to my shame, I used to say that to Casey. Why do you have to make everything so difficult? I think that doesn't wound someone's heart. And that's all my issue. So in the moment, I hear defiant, disrespectful kid. But you know what it is? And it's not an excuse. It's just the root of it. It's anxiety. Anxiety is caused by unknowns, things you can't control. I am 53 years of age. I still struggle with new experiences. My natural impulse, whenever someone says, hey, do you want to do that? Nope, don't want to do it. By the way, I'll share this with you. My natural impulse is always to say no. When I'm doing my morning walks with God, I'm saying, trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your understanding. All your ways acknowledge Him. And I'm asking, what's your will? And sometimes you get that sense that God wants you to do something. You know what my initial response is? Not going to happen. I know you're bigger than me. I know you've got a lot of wisdom. I don't like your idea, God. I don't like it. It's going to make me uncomfortable. And I don't like discomfort. Not happening. Next time I walk, still think it's a pretty bad idea, God. Not liking it. And eventually, I say yes, but not right away. I have very honest talks with God. And it's not an excuse, but I wrestle with it. I'm like, look, you kind of made me this way. I know it's kind of an excuse, but it's just my way. I know it, and so I'm comfortable with it. That's what I do. I will share this as not a justification, but hopefully for a few people out there, and forgive me if it offends you, I swear when I talk to God. I do. I know that may not be right, but I was, you know that story of the woman caught in adultery? I was walking one day, and I'm having like a little picture of that, and you know what hit me, and I hope this doesn't offend you, But what hit me was the freaking God of the universe knelt. That phrase, for some reason, it makes it raw and real. The freaking God of the universe knelt. The enormous humility. I wouldn't have done that. I would have called her all kinds of names. Little hussy, put your clothes on. Why are you sleeping with men? Don't you have enough self-respect? Jesus didn't. He knelt in the dirt and averted his eyes. And so I say that because I'm wrestling with it in my own personal life a little bit, because I have honest talks with God of like, do you want me to stop swearing like that when I'm talking to you? Now, I don't walk around like swearing with other people, except live presentations, of course. But I don't use useless. But there's something about the intensity that makes stuff very real for me, and I really am wrestling. And so if you struggle with that, you're not alone with that. And so the fruit of my life, besides my language, I think is fairly decent, so I'm continuing with it. So anyway, until God mutes me or something. Okay, so, but I do apologize if it offends you. So, where was I in my story? Oh, it's anxiety, it's unknowns. So, here's what your child's thinking. Inside, he's starting to wrestle. You said we're going to Taekwondo. Is it going to be really noisy at the Taekwondo place? Is the instructor going to be nice to me? What about the other kids? Are they going to pick on me? Because I get along better with older kids. I get along better with like older kids and adults and little kids and animals, but kids my own age, I struggle to connect with them. How many of your kids are like that? Look, have some compassion. What would it be like? Here's what we basically tell them. Hey, 12 years of school, guess what? You're going to go to school with only kids your own age, and you're not going to connect well with them. Because you're too smart for them, and you think they're dumb, and you're driven to other people. So enjoy school today with all kids that you can't naturally get along with. And by the way, when you sit at lunch period at the cafeteria, you're probably going to sit by yourself. What do you think that feels like all day? And then your kid comes home from school, and you wonder why he doesn't want to sit and do this stuff, because he's probably worked so hard to hold it together for the teachers. And sometimes I get calls from parents who are like, well, my son got in trouble because he pushed another kid in line at the cafeteria. I'm like, who cared? So what that tells me is your son has initiative. He was hungry, moved another child out of the way, right? But sometimes think what he didn't do. He didn't push him on the ground and stomp on his head. He didn't hit him in the back of the head with scissors. There was no blood involved. So he pushed the kid out of the way. What I'm going to teach him is next time, just do it and don't get caught. You just need to get better. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, you're going to have to wrestle because your kids are going to do stuff like that. And you're going to be like, call me when there's bloodshed. Like when we did that, we did stuff like that with kids. We did all of that stuff, and it wasn't a big deal. And teachers have it hard because there's lawsuits, but still. So, what if the other kids pick on me? What if I'm not good at Taekwondo and I want to quit? Is Dad going to call me a quitter? No. And the reason he'll say, no, I'm not going. You're stupid. I hate you. Have you ever wondered why they would do something that results in them losing everything they own? It's this. Fine, spank me, take away everything I own, send me to my room. I can take that, but do not send me to another place where I can get rejected and I might fail. Not happening. Does that make sense? So in that moment, this wraps everything together, and I say, I look down at Robert, and he's screaming, and his face is all red. Taekwondo's stupid. I'm not going. Or here's another good one for Christian parents. You can't make me. Have your kids do that one. Oh, you are not going to challenge my authority, right? They know that. They're so smart. They play us. So when I look down at him, because I control myself and I give my child wisdom and tools, I look down and say, Robert, I think I know what's going on. Because remember that phrase, when your world is out of control, mine's not. I'll give you wisdom. You know what's going on is you're nervous because you're going to a new place. You should be a little bit nervous. You know how comforting that is to someone who's freaking out to know you're not just a defiant little snot, and you're because he knows his brother and sister don't freak out, and he knows the other kids. He's the weird one who's sat outside. That kid that you have, the strong-willed one, he knows he's the outlier. He knows he's the one when you go out with a family, he's the one who can't eat at the restaurant, has to be all particular, and he ruins every outing. And they do. How many of your kids, by the way, are great with one parent and horrible with both? Right? So, Because they know when mom takes them out, mom's usually like, okay, let's give them a little bit of latitude, right? And then when dad's along, mom senses dad's like, get down off of that. So mom's like, oh, just chill, husband, he's going to be okay. And then he pick up all that tension and it blows up. So it's just better if you divide and conquer sometimes. It really is. Or get on the same page with each other and relax a little bit with it. So when I look down and say, Robert, I know what's going on. You're anxious. See, now I've given them wisdom. You're not just a terrible, difficult kid. You're a nervous kid, and I've normalized it. Please normalize some of these things like anxiety. Of course, this is a great phrase. Of course you're nervous. You mean it's normal to be nervous? Of course you're going to a new place. They might reject you. You may not like it. Maybe a waste of your time. But I know that you're capable. I believe you're capable of doing it. I love that phrase. I believe you're capable. So here's the tool that we use for anxiety. Whenever you're taking your kids to a new place, ask another adult to give your child a specific job to do. Does that make sense? So if I go a few days ahead of time, say, hey, Mr. Taekwondo, my son's going to be in your class next week, loves helping other people. You give him a job to do. And Taekwondo guys like, Robert, psyched you're in my class. Listen, next week, I need you here 5 minutes early. I need you to rearrange the mats, set up the cones, help me out getting ready for class. Most of your kids to other people? Yes, ma'am, yes, sir. So next week when I come in, Robert, come on, gotta go. Here's what his mind triggers to, not all the unknowns. Mom, Dad, remember, Taekwondo guy needs my help. He said be there 5 minutes early, so we have to leave like 3.5 hours early, so we're not late. Honor it a little bit and get there a little bit early for them. They are slow processors. When they walk into a new place, it's slow. They're soaking up the environment. And so for them to go even a few days ahead of time to soak it up, if your kids are transitioning to a new school, make sure you give them time over the summer or something else just to go. There's something comforting about knowing like that's where the hallway and that's where the cafeteria and this is where things are. I'm 53 and I still do this. I get here early. Remember at the beginning, yesterday or last night, I said, hey, why'd you come out? What are you looking for? And I was asking you to give me stuff. That wasn't for you. I know what you're going to ask. I've done this like 2,000 times. Everybody asks the same questions. That was for me. Because I'm an introvert and I have a lot of anxiety. And that's my way of listening and connecting before I do that. That's my tool that I use because I have a lot of anxiety. So when he walks in that place, he's got his job to do. And he goes and does it. And the Taekwondo guy says, nice job, my friend. Same time next week. So if your kids have a teacher at school, Rebecca, I need your help. Like little kids with a little bit of separation anxiety. Rebecca, I need your help. I need you to move all the books in my classrooms from this side of the room to that side of the room. And tomorrow, you can move them back. And your child won't care because they love doing the job. And that's why I love giving jobs to do. Have a sports coach do it. Have to get them out there. Have another adult do it because they'll listen. Does that make sense? So here's what I want to do. I want to end on this right now. Because I've got 4 minutes left, and I want to make up some of the time. When we come, I want to give you a short little break to get some water, do whatever you need to do. When we come back, I'm going to do a thing on internal motivation, how to motivate your kids. We'll do some stuff on couples, on marriage, getting on the same page, and I'll do some Q&A, whatever you want to do. If you do, I didn't make the announcement. I'm not with the CDs. If you weren't here last night, we have all of our audio CDs, the entire collection. It's usually like $4.97 or $6.97. We're doing 2 for $99, or get everything we own plus the marriage mentoring plus the sibling fight one for $197. If you need help financially, see Casey out there. He will help you. If I don't say it later, I know a bunch of you bought them last night. If you get the CDs, do listen to the strong-willed child one and the ADHD ones first. They're very, very foundational. And as you listen, if you have questions, just email me. And I'll help you out with that. But let's go ahead and take a short little break, and we get back, we'll kind of close up and hit a lot of loose ends. And if you have questions, come on up here, and they'll turn the mic off, and we can talk. Thank you for being patient. This. One other thing that you can do is you can make chores sometimes more challenging or difficult. Kids who came to my home, I would make them do their chores with their blindfolded or backwards, because there's a chance they could fall down the stairs and crack their heads open. And they loved that. Honestly, they loved it. The other thing you could do is change the actual chores. So I have a lot of kids who, they're just weird, and they like pulling weeds. So I'm like, the whole goal of chores, I think, for us is we just want them to contribute to the household, right? And to doing things and be responsible. So maybe you change from, here are the 3 you have to do, to, here are the 20 things that have to happen in our home, choose 3, right? And do that. What I want to avoid, I think, in the long term, and I know some of this for some people will be like, oh, you're just being too soft getting away with things, and I get that, is I don't think it is that for me, but it is this. I want to avoid the thinking that if my kids don't do the chores the way I did it, it means they won't be responsible in life one day. I don't believe that that's true. That's why I don't like projecting out into the future. Kids change, and again, you've seen them be responsible when they care. When you wake them up to go to school on Monday morning, I don't want to go, I'm too tired. But if you woke them up Monday morning and say, we're going to play laser tag, they're up right away. They slept just fine. They get dressed and eat. It's a motivation issue more than anything else. So let's go through some this internal motivation thing. So I want to set it up like this. Before I forget, I have a really good idea for school stuff. Many of your kids, when they bring their report card home, it's just like, ugh, it's a sign of their failure. Here, look at my failure. So I would encourage you with some of these kids, create your own report card. And here's what I mean by that. It's not that you're going to deny. So when they come home with their report card, you're going to look at their school report card and say, hey, looks like you brought that grade up. Looks like you're struggling in that area. You need a tutor. You need some help with that, because I'll give you tools. I'll help you with that. Personally, with Casey, I'd say, okay, not a great grade in that class, but it's okay because that's an unimportant class and you're not going to use it in life. And I'm okay with that. You don't have to do the same thing, but I was trying to draw distinctions. I was like, well, if you're going to stink at a class, maybe may as well make it something that you're not going to use in life. So, because I know the way he was. But I'd also have my own report card, and I'd say, school report card is important, but it's not the most important thing. The report card that we have in our home are the 5 qualities that we've determined are necessary for success in life. Whatever those are, leadership, compassion, right? Initiative, all of these other qualities, critical thinking skills, helping other people, serving. And so I would have for Casey a report card where I'd say, school report card, not bad, not the best. Do a little bit better, give you some tools. That class you'll probably never do that well in because he wasn't ever good in science. I didn't make a big deal out of it. Why? Because he knew he wasn't going to be a scientist. So I'm not going to freak out. But Casey, leadership, all over it. Compassion and serving other people. And I'd have examples and I'd say, here are the qualities that I really want you to focus on to be successful in life. And in that area, you're doing really well. School, you'll probably always struggle a little bit. That's me. It's up to you how you want to do that. So how many of you have kids, have a child who does well in school, right? And that's awesome. And it's really good. So think about this. Picture that child. That child is sitting in school every day. We're doing homeschooling, but sitting in school. And they're doing their work, and they're really good at school. They're using their gifts, and they're getting rewarded. You got an A, honor roll, honors classes. You're going to go to college. It feels good. They're confident because they use their gifts. Now you have the strong-willed child, or whatever you want to call it, the child with some special needs, and they're sitting in school all day, not doing that well all the time. What happens? Starts to hurt their confidence, and they start to shut down. The way that you build confidence is not by telling your kids they're awesome. The way you build confidence comes from competence, being good at something. The hard part that you're going to struggle with these kids is their particular gifts and passions tend to be ones that they don't get grades for, right? How many of your kids can just take something apart and put it back together or build something? If they could get grades for their Lego projects, they'd have all A's. So here's what I encourage you to do. 3-step process. Make a list of your child's gifts, talents, and passions. What are their natural gifts, their natural talents, their national passions? What are they drawn to? Make that list, because I guarantee you if your child's a little older, the list that you have running through your head is all the things that they don't do well and that they never do. And that comes out of our heart, and that's all we ever talk about. You couldn't do that. Make a list, whatever it is. If they're good at building with things, if they're very creative, if they're good at arguing, good. Future attorney. So this particular learning style. Make that list related to that. Who do your kids connect well with? How many of your kids connect well with animals? Okay, it's there for a reason. We've got to use it. Younger kids, maybe your kid's great with younger kids, and some of them with seniors. Younger kids doesn't mean siblings, because that doesn't count. But younger kids, make that list. Second step, give them opportunities to use their natural gifts, talents, and passions outside the home. In the neighborhood, the community, school, church. Thirdly, accountable to another adult. Other adults can do two things for older kids that you can't do. They can see good things in your child because they don't live with your child. And, look, if you brought your strongest-willed child to me, I would immediately see all the good stuff that I like. I'd be like, wow, he can really carry on a conversation. He's really bright. He can pick out my inconsistencies, whatever they are. I can pick them out because I don't have to live with them. Other adults can also hold your kids accountable in ways that you can't. Because how many of your kids, remember we said, how many of your kids are awesome for other people and horrible for you? So here are a few examples of how we do that. So this is a cool one. This is last year, about a year ago. Was at a workshop, and a mom sitting right over there came up during the break. She's like, I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and she's shut down. Bad attitude, doesn't want to do her school, won't do anything for around the house. She's just shut down. What consequence can I give? I was like, you've probably already done them all. So tell me about your daughter. So tells me the negative. I don't want to know the negative. I already know the negative. What does she love to do? So I found out this in about a minute and a half. She loves soccer, and she really, really connects well with little kids. So here is the plan. Told the mom, go find a soccer coach in your community. Go up to him and say, hey, you're coaching these little kids. They're all running around. My daughter's 12. She's awesome. She will come and help you. You don't have to pay her. She loves being with little kids. Would you mind if she came out on Tuesday night and helped you out with your practice? So it's like, I could use a little bit of help. So the girl goes out. It's a Tuesday evening, because I remember it's Tuesday because her mom emailed me with this. Girl goes on Tuesday evening, helps out, and guess what happened at the end of that practice? 8 little girls came up and gave her a hug. Why? Because little girls think older girls are kind of cool. And that girl, 12-year-old, loved on those little kids. You think she came home that night with a bad attitude, or you think she came home on cloud 9? Because she's using the gifts that God gave her, and those gifts are calling out to her. And she had a chance. She didn't get a chance to use those all day in school. She got a chance at that soccer field. So coach is like, hey, you're helpful. Come back Saturday. We've got a game. So she goes, helps out, and it's awesome. Something cool happened. A couple of the parents come up to her and say, hey, my daughter loves you. Talks about you all day. When do we get to see Rebecca? Rebecca, my daughter's struggling in school. Would you mind tutoring my daughter? Not knowing that Rebecca has not done schoolwork for like 3 years, right? But watch, this is really important. Now that 12-year-old girl has a reason to do schoolwork, and has a reason because she's using her gifts to help other people. Does that make sense? Now the accountability. Young lady, I want you coming to all my practices and games. But if I hear that you're mouthing off at your mother, not keeping a B average and not doing your chores, you're not working with these little girls, because they're looking for a leader, and that's what I'm looking for. And guess what he got from her? Yes, sir. Does that make sense? It's the back door with these kids. We want to do well in school. Stop focusing on school. Use their gifts. 14-year-old boy, same thing, except he's into computers and electronics. Hey, what do you want to do in life? I want to be a video game designer. Shocker, right? The only thing worse is I'm going to be a YouTuber and make money. Okay, you're going to be a millionaire too. And I'm Kim Kardashian. So it's not going to work. So who do you connect with? Old people, older people, seniors. By the way, senior citizens are awesome for strong-willed kids. Take advantage of that older couple or that old lady in your neighborhood, in your church. They are unused and untapped people because they have a lifetime of wisdom, and they just sit and watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune every night. And I guarantee you, if you go to them and say, I've got this tough kid, Would you mind tutoring? Would you mind doing homework? You don't have to do some homework. Could he come down to your house? You bake him some cookies, do some. Older people are patient. They have all the time in the world. They do. But they also don't put up with any crap. My mom's in a wheelchair. She would love on all of your kids. But if they got a little attitude, she would tell them, I will get up out of this wheelchair, I will hunt you down with my cane, and I will beat you. Not physically, but you know what I mean. There's something really beautiful. Don't be afraid to ask people for help with the strong-willed kids. You've got 3 kids. Ask the old lady down the neighborhood, would you mind if Jacob comes down a couple afternoons a week? Because he'll change your light bulb, he'll rake your leaves, but could you do the math homework? Because you've got retired teachers all over the place. And they love to help your kids. And your child will listen to the other person, because that old lady's not going to stand over your child like you do, saying, you know what, if you would just focus, you'd be done in 45 minutes instead of it taking 3 hours, right? So use older people. So here's what happens. You've got to get the other person to approach your child. So at church one day, by the way, great way to get your kids to church. A couple quick things. Many of them don't want to go to children's church because they're bored. Yeah, I know. I've been doing Noah's Ark since I was like 3. Got it. Flood, ark, animals. Got it. Rainbow. Let me listen to the pastor and pick out all of his inconsistencies, right? So you know what we did with Casey? Because he wouldn't go to children's church. And we would bribe him, do everything. But he was like demon-possessed. And he put his hands like in the doorway and screaming. And we were like, and we did what you do. You know what? He's got allergies. He's just got allergy. How many of you blame it on sickness? No, he just doesn't. So we let him sit in regular people church, adult church, and he loved it because they're old souls often. So don't be afraid to do it differently with that. Anyway, but get kids to church. Sometimes we've done this because they don't want to go because they're bored, whatever. You get one of the sound guys back there, talk to your child and say, hey, I've heard you're really into music and audio stuff. I could use your help. Could you get here like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before church every Sunday? You can help me, right? You can help me test the mic out. Now, you got your kid to church because he's helping out, right? And then you guys can give him little jobs to do and errands around the church. He's here, he's listening, soaking it up. But anyway, it's a neat way to do it. So, seniors ministry comes to this kid and says, hey, got all these seniors, meet Wednesday night at 6, early, eat dinner together. They all want to get on Facebook so they can keep up with their kids and grandkids. Would you come and teach them how to do that Wednesday night? Love that. So you know what happened to this kid? He gets there, 10 senior citizens love on him. Man, you're good at this. Have you ever thought about going to college for IT? You can make a lot of money in IT. And because it's other people talking to him about college and not his stupid parents, he's listening. Does that make sense? Right? And one more. Those of you with kids with animals. One is service projects, by the way. Get your kids involved in service projects. Really good for them. We used to feed people when we lived in Nashville. We'd go down every Friday night and feed the homeless. There are a lot of homeless people in Nashville. They're all musicians, right? And so they taught, no, they are. I mean, it's like, we're going to move to Nashville and make it. No, you're not. And so there are a lot of them. And Casey would sit down with them, take his guitar down, and they would show him how to, they taught him, Casey learned how to play guitar, one, by teaching himself on YouTube. How many of your kids teach yourselves things? They don't, by the way, save your money. Don't buy expensive stuff because they're only going to play one time for many of your kids. And don't hire a teacher like the German or Russian lady who needs to learn how to read music first. They're not going to do it that way. They're going to feel it. And they're going to do it. So when Case started playing guitar, he was into blues music, old soul. We went to see B.B. King, and we had a chance to meet him. I said, Mr. King, could you tell my son how important it is to learn to read music? And he said, I don't know how to read music. I just feel it, man. And I was like, you're not very good, right? That's our kids. They feel, they want to experience. We're in Northern Virginia, very high. It's kind of like Overland Park, like really uptight parents, and their kids want to all be successful and whatever. And so these parents, sorry, but it is. It's a nice area, and so everybody is. And so that's why there's so much stuff going on here. Anxiety and suicide and stuff happens because so much pressure on the kids, and that's a parent's issue. But anyway, so parents come up and be like, my daughter's playing piano, and we have a teacher, but she won't practice her piano. By the way, your kids aren't going to practice. How many of you have discovered that already? They're not. My kid could be so good at baseball or basketball if he would just practice. They're not yet. Most of them aren't. And you're going to be like, anyway. So they're like, she won't practice. And I was like, does she enjoy playing? And they were like, yeah, well, she composes her own music, but she won't practice. I was like, she's composing her own music. And you're upset because she doesn't want to do it the way the Russian lady wants her to do it? Composing her music is practicing. That's what I mean. These kids are going to do everything opposite of the way you want. And I'm not saying it's right, but it's the way they do it. And it's easier to say, Casey learned guitar from homeless people and YouTube. So service projects are awesome for your kids. But anyway, so you take a girl. We've done this a lot with your daughters. Go to a animal shelter or a veterinarian. It's really cool. Just say, hey, free labor. My daughter loves animals. She will clean up all the dog poop, and she'll clean up everything. You don't have to pay her. Could she come over? And you know what happens every single time? The veterinarian talks to your daughter and says, you've got a gift with animals. Not very good with people, but you got a gift with animals. Ever thought about being a veterinarian? And you know what's sad? For the first time in her life, someone's finally identified that. You know when it first came up in like second grade? You know in second grade, every class has like the class hamster? And guess what happened? She got in trouble because all she wanted to do was take care of the hamster. It'll make you cry if you think about it, because all those years, leave that alone. You need to do this other stuff. And we miss that her gift that God put in her was coming out in second grade, but because she wasn't doing what she was supposed to, we dismissed her gift. And only when we got her at that veterinarian's office did someone look at her and say, you'd be a veterinarian one day. And that's the day she goes home and says, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And the parents are like, not even sure you're going to make it out of middle school with those grades. And she says, oh, yeah? I'm going to go to the most expensive veterinary school in the country and waste all your money. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. She'll do it. And my final thing on this is discover what your kids care about. It's not going to be what you care about. It's going to be what they care about. And once they care about it and they start doing it, see, the girl with the soccer, she has a reason to do school now. The little kid who wants to be the video game designer is going to be in IT. He's going to do his schoolwork now. He's going to be motivated. And that girl who wants to be a veterinarian, she's going to start doing her schoolwork. Now, here's the last thing. She's not going to do it with a good attitude. I can't promise that. She will hate it every day of her life. School's stupid, it's dumb, but she'll do it. Does that make sense? And that's all I want. I sometimes tell kids, just play the game. Give them what they want. Get the piece of paper. I personally don't have a problem with that because that's what they're going to do anyway. Some classes that don't really matter in life, do the minimal work necessary. You don't want to be exhausted because you want to be able to stay up and play video games late at night. So don't put too much effort into things that you should be doing. I'm kidding. You know what I mean. I'm really not kidding with that. I believe in talking honestly to them because that's what they're going to do anyway, and I'd rather give them some wisdom in how to do it. One quick one, giving your kids wisdom. This will apply maybe to a couple people. These are kids. My wife is a rule follower. My wife is a naturally good person. She's awesome. She will never cross the line. If you notice when I'm presenting, my feet are always off the edge. Why? Chance I could fall off. Makes it interesting to me. I like the feeling. I like the feeling. So here's what I knew about my son. My son will cross that line. How many of your kids do that with friends? Do not put your foot on the sofa. And they'll hold it like that far away, and they'll touch their heel to it. And they'll be like, my foot didn't touch, it was my heel. And you will get wrapped up in 4 hours of arguing over it. I knew my son from an early age had a need for speed. He loved cars. So when he got his driver's license, look, you can lecture all day long. It's dangerous to speed. Don't speed, all of that. So I was teaching him how to drive. We're in Kentucky, I-64, awesome road, wide open, has a lot of hills like that. So we're driving, and I told him, I said, here's how we're going to do it. I know you want to go fast. I know it's going to happen, but I want to teach you to do it at the right time with wisdom. So here's when we're going to do it. Speed limit here is 70. When we get to the top of that hill, I want you to look down, make sure there are no cops, make sure there are nice soft bushes in case we crash. And then I want you to goose it. And you can go 77 miles per hour. If you go 78, you will not drive for another 6 months. Don't mess with me. Right? So you goose it, and as soon as I say brake, you better hit that brake or you lose it for 6 months. But I gave him opportunity to push the limits a little bit but within my boundaries. Does that make sense? There's some wisdom there. I don't know how you want to apply it, but I'd encourage you to do it. It's kind of cool. Let's do, I'm going to transition. I'm going to spend the last 24 minutes and 45 seconds on some relationship stuff. Okay, everybody good with that? Let's do some marriage stuff. I just have to knock it down, so give me just a second, please. Okay, I'm going to do a few things for men really quickly. And this is for all of us, a couple setups. Purpose of relationships is transformation. It's not happiness, it's transformation. You're together with marriage, the union of two selfish people, right? Pretty much. And nobody tells you that when you get married. Now you're going to marry a selfish person who's got all kinds of issues from their childhood, and then you're going to have kids. And so you're going to populate your home with other irritating people. And so by the end of it, you're probably going to have 4 irritating people who all want their own way. And so the outcome of that is either going to be that you grow up or you grow apart, because your family sees you naked. They know all of your weaknesses, so I encourage you to embrace it. For me, marriage stuff is the hardest part that I ever did. The changing as a dad kind of was hard, but not as hard as the marriage thing was for me. So I'm going to do a few things for guys really quickly that are easy. Acknowledge your wife's emotions. When she's having a bad day, it's easy. Honey, totally get that you're frustrated. Zip. Don't say another word. Don't try to fix it. All you want to acknowledge is, got it, you're having a bad day. Do you really understand? No. You don't have to understand, but just say, like, totally get why you're frustrated. Look, we've got 2 kids and you're married to me. You should be frustrated a fair amount of the time, right? I get it. Right? Don't dismiss it. Don't fix it. Okay? Because your wife is never going to say, honey, I'm so glad I married someone who's always right. Because I can always count on you to point out when my feelings are illegitimate and it makes me feel safe to be married to you. Let's go up to the bedroom. Like, this is never going to happen, okay? Affirm each other. Here's a quick one. You're a really good mom. You know what percentage of moms feel like they're doing enough? That'd be 0%. Virtually no moms feel like they're doing well enough. You're a really good mom. You know what helps? You know what my wife used to tell me that really impacted me, and I know it doesn't sound like a big deal? I appreciate how hard you're working for us. Because that was a core part of my identity. I don't know why, but when she said that, I was like, I want to work harder, right? And then when I work harder, I'm not at home, and that's better for you as well. I'm kidding. That was before I changed. This is for the men, mainly. Stop proving your point to your wife. Took me a full year. I had affirmations on my phone. I do not have to prove my point. I do not have, because my wife would tell me something and then I counter it all the time. And eventually she said, when you counter it and point out all of my flawed thinking, it makes me feel like I'm that tall. It was life-changing for me because you know what I can do now with politics? I don't have to prove other people's point wrong. In my 53 years on earth, I have never changed someone from one political party to the other. I've only really proved that I'm a really big jerk, right? That's why a lot of us hammer people with their Christianity and they're like, oh, you just proved to me that's why I don't want to be a Christian, right? So I try to live it out rather than do it like that. But anyway, stop proving your point. Let me get to the deeper stuff. Connecting emotionally. Okay, here's a good one. How many men out there know what it actually means to connect emotionally? Look and see, and why wives always tell us that stuff. Like, my wife used to say, I don't feel valued. And inside I was like, you don't feel valued? Here's how you're valued. I go to work every day for a company that I hate. I've wanted to murder my boss for the last 14 years. But I go to work so I earn money so we can live in a good neighborhood so we can send our child to a good school. That's how I value you. And she was like, that's not what I was looking for. I was like, well, tell me. Why'd you have to be assertive? Because my wife was never assertive. And she was like this classic. Wife texts husband, and I know sometimes dad stays home, wife works, whatever. It works both ways. Wife will, I need you home, I need help with the kids. Well, every man in here, first thought is, I better get home, yell at the kids, right? I'm sticking up for my wife. But if my wife, when she started to say, when you get home, I need 12 and a half minutes of alone time, or you will see me on the evening news. So now I'm like, okay, I need to get the kids out of the house to give my wife a break. So I pull up in the car, pull some loose change out of the little cup, walk up to the front door, open up and yell, treasure hunt, and I'd throw coins out in the front of her backyard. Your kids will go out and look at them, and now my wife can double lock the door. There's your 12 and a half minutes. But you've got to be specific. So she would always say things like, I just want to connect emotionally. And I was like, well, we watched the Packers game last night and had some nachos. I was feeling it. That's not what she meant. So one day, I'm working. I love football season because I'm work. I have my own business, so I love my laptop. And she'd walk in the room, and I'd look up, give her a little eye contact, right? That's what we're doing. And do this. Yeah, I'm good. Not enough, right? That's not what you're looking for. So one day when she came in, I did this. And she said, that's what I'm looking for. And inside I was like, you could have told me that like 12 years ago, right? Because I don't know. I don't know what that, and she said, that's what I'm looking for because that makes me feel like I'm more important than your work. And I was like, good. Close the laptop? Good. I can do that. I'm a man, I'm pretty simple. But let's be specific with each other and tell each other, tell people, tell your husband, tell your wife exactly what you need. Being bossy is when you tell other people what to do. Being assertive is when you tell other people what you need. Once I know what you need, I can meet that need, but don't make me guess. Well, you should just know what I'm thinking. You don't even know what you're thinking half the time. So stop reading those stupid Nicholas Sparks books with the perfect man who can chop down a tree and build a canoe and a guitar and sing to his wife out on the lake in a rainstorm, right? And who makes $300,000. Those men don't exist. The books are called fiction. And stop watching those stupid romantic comedies. It's the same dumb story. Oh, they didn't like each other at first, and then there's a connection. And he knows exactly what to say. Why? Because he's reading a script. Give your husband a script, and he'll say, you look beautiful today, honey. You look younger than when we were married. Anyway. Guys, leave your phone in the car when you go out to dinner with your wife. There are no kids in here, right? That can understand. So I'll do this one in a minute. I get a lot of times from men like, oh, I want to be more intimate with my wife. We'll get to that in a second. You start leaving your phone in the car. You start closing the laptop and give your wife like 90 seconds of eye contact when you come home from work. 90 seconds is a long time if you're ADD, isn't it? Right? You know how I did it when I first, this is the funniest thing. My wife's like, I just want eye contact. So I came home one day and I'm like this. She goes, you're staring at me. I was like, you said you wanted eye contact. I don't know how to do this stuff. She goes, you're staring at me like I'm some thing to watch. I was like, no, I'm giving you eye contact. She's like, dude, your dad really didn't teach you anything, did he? I was like, nope. I'm not going to go into this one. Assume the best about each other's intentions. I guarantee that narrative that you have in your head isn't entirely true. Because we build all these little narratives. Well, he just doesn't care. I guarantee he cares. He may just show you in a different way, right? Own your part. We'll get to the own your part. I don't have a lot of time. Let me do 2 stories and 2 things in this, and I hope you find it helpful. So this is very personal. So my wife and I go to marriage therapy because I didn't learn any of this stuff. And she's like, I didn't know how to do this stuff naturally. And we're in therapy, and she's like, well, you don't know how to emote. You don't know how to share your emotions. And I was like, well, I know. When you tell me something, I go in my mind, and I figure out how to do it, right? How many of you kind of do that? And so I'm like, why would I emote, right? Like, this is working for me. I figure it out. She said, you don't seem human, right? So she would come and tell me something, and rather than like say like, oh, wow, that must make you feel really frustrated. I didn't know to say that. So I'd be like, okay, let me think about it, and I'll have a little solution for you. So she's looking at the therapist, and she said, I feel like I can't connect with him. And I remember it hitting me then, I had no idea what to do. Literally had no idea. So I said, well, honey, what should I say? I shouldn't have to tell you what to say. When I'm going through something, isn't there some feeling in there? I was like, well, there's feeling, but I'm trying to figure out how to help you. And she's like, no, I want you to acknowledge what it is and just say that. And I was like, I don't know what to say. Will you tell me? She got really upset. And I remember I started crying, and I looked at the therapist, and I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm not being a jerk. Like, I'm trying to be a good guy. I don't, will you please? I remember saying, will someone please tell me what to do? And it hit me. I was like a 38-year-old man who'd been successful in the corporate world. I can work, I can be successful, I can do all these things, and I have no idea how to have a relationship with my wife. And I remember looking at her saying, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I don't know how to do this stuff. So I encourage you, be patient with your spouse. You married a broken person, and you're really broken too. And be, as long as your spouse is willing to try, hang in there with that spouse. It's not about being a good person. This was skills, so I had to practice. So she tells my wife to leave the room, and he's like, Kirk, say this. When you say that, it sounds like you're really upset. It sounds like you're really frustrated. But when I said, I was like, it sounds like you're really frustrated, honey, right? And I did that the first time. She goes, well, that's kind of wooden. And I got furious. I was like, I'm trying to change here. You got to give me some grace here because I got to learn. Now, I'm almost like a woman. I can emote over everything, and I'm almost too good at it. And my wife is like, okay, honey, you're overreacting. And I was like, don't tell me that, right? And so I feel dismissed. So I walk around now, I'm like, I don't feel like my voice is heard in this home, right? So, but this stuff is really hard. And so I encourage you to be patient with each other. So the final thing I'd hit on is own your part. What is your part? You play a part in every relationship you have. My wife and I are perfectly imperfect for each other. She grew up without a strong sense of her own identity. She didn't have any confidence, and she never really spoke up. Well, she became very small in our marriage. So I would ask her things like, where do you want to go on vacation? Oh, I don't know, I don't care. So I would choose. Well, after many years, the narrative develops, my husband is controlling. He picks out where we go. And in my head, I'm like, I've asked you. You won't tell me. See, she played her part, and I played my part. So I'm going to do kind of a fun example, but I think it's illustrative. Men will be like, I want to have sex more with my wife. Like, okay, what's your part? Okay, let's start with basics. You're doing proper hygiene. So I let guys into the marriage, they're like, they don't brush their teeth, and they don't take showers, and they kind of smell. And I'd be like, if I were a woman, I wouldn't have been in the same room with you. So you got to own your part. That's the easy one. Don't go to bed so late. Guy rolls in at 11:30 after Sports Center. Hey, honey, you in the mood? And she's like, yeah, to sleep 3 hours ago, right? But here's the one that hits a lot. Sometimes our wives don't want to do that with us because they're just exhausted, because they handle the kids most of the time. Kids are exhausting. I can work into my job all day long. Doesn't drain me at all. I get energy from my work, and at office, I can boss people around. I can do all kinds of stuff. When I come home and there are Legos on the floor and kids got crap all over his face and my wife's upset, that's why do you think I worked late? Honey, I got to work, special project, I got to work late. Who wants to be home for bedtime? That's a miserable time, and true? So if I can be on a business trip, I'd beg my boss, like, please send me somewhere. I don't want to do bath time, bedtime, and ugh. Anyway, just saying it's hard. So guys, here's a good one. So your wife is overwhelmed. So what can you do to help out with that? So guy comes home, he says, honey, I want to do something new. Every Tuesday night or Wednesday night, Thursday, once a week, start with once, small progress. I've got the kids. I'm going to do homework. I'm going to do dinner time, bath time, and bedtime. Take the night off. And you'll find that many of your wives will just go out and sit in the car. Literally just do nothing, right? And it's like, how many of the wives in here, this is a funny one. Weekend, our thing was on the weekends, she would stay home with the kids, but on the weekend, then I'd take them out and she'd be home. I'd be like, what are you going to do with your free day? I'm going to clean the house. How many of you do that? I'd be like, oh, why? You like go to a spa? Nope, just want to clean with nobody else here. So anyway, so you start giving your wife a night off, a night or two off. She'll have more energy to do other things. She'll feel taken care of. But here's the part for you, for the wives, it's this. He didn't tell you how he was going to get it done. So if you come home and there are pizza boxes on the floor, this is how dinner got taken care of. He hosed the kids down for a bath. Just a little bit of cold weather is good for your nervous system, right? A cold bath is good for them. There's a little Jack Daniels bottle by the bed. He knocked them out, put them to sleep. And your appropriate response is, honey, thank you for the night off, right? You know I'm kidding. Is that pretty true? He's like, yeah, it's pretty much what Robert does. So, right? But he did it, but it's owning your part. And I would ask you to do this sometime this weekend or in the next week. Ask your spouse, I have this little thing, I like doing small things. I like really small progress. 2 things. You okay? You good? I'm good. You good? Okay, good. So, I don't know why you're walking in here. See how kind of controlling? He's like prowling for this. Whatever. So, one thing, do one small thing for your spouse. Look, the feelings go away after a little while. And they don't just magically appear, but they appear when you invest. So look, here's a good one for a hubby or a wife. Hubby, leave a little Hershey kiss on your wife's car when you go to work in the morning. Do the purple one. It's dark chocolate. Good for her. Okay? And especially in the winter when it doesn't melt. Wife's going to come out to her car and think, someone was thinking about me. I wonder if it was that neighbor guy down the street. I'm kidding. No. But look, this is a very small thing, but watch what's wrapped up in this. The husband had to go to the store or the fridge or the whatever, grab that thing, and had to think it through, and had to intentionally go out and leave that. And he's going to kind of get some satisfaction of anticipating when his wife goes out and sees that. There's an investment there. And when you invest, the feelings start to come back, right? Send a little note with your husband or your wife off to work. Little things matter. The little one I did, my wife hated cleaning out the lint trap on the dryer. So I would go by the laundry room, and I'd just clean that up. It took me literally 10 seconds. And because I was vain, I would sometimes wait near the room when she went by and she checked, and I'd be like, yeah, I did that. I did that for you. Because I wanted the bonus points. But here's one thing. Ask your spouse this sometime. What is one thing that I could begin doing differently? Don't argue with it, as long as it's within reason, right? What's one thing that I could begin doing differently? And then do it. Don't resist it. Well, but I do all these other things. What would be meaningful for you? Some of the wives are going to be like, when you come home, will you calm the kids down? Again, I mentioned that yesterday. You start getting really good at calming your kids down, your wife will want you. Right? Because your wife loves your kids more than she will ever love you. It's true. You're not going to leave your kids, but you'll leave your husband. Right? If you give me a choice, wife's going to leave you. I'm not leaving my kids. But you take care of her kids, and you are gentle with them, and you calm them down, and you connect with them, she will want you. And I would encourage you in the church, and the main pastor's gone, executive pastor's here, so I may get in trouble with him. Church is a lousy job with sex and all that stuff. God designed it. Christians are supposed to have good sex, and a lot of it, to populate the earth. I'm kidding. But, no, but we're supposed to. It's an intimate connection. Make it fun again. Remember, if you grew up in a conservative home, remember when you were young and you wanted to do it all the time, but you weren't married yet? You were like, oh, let's figure out where we can get around the rules and all that stuff. You can do it now if you're married, whenever you want. So wives sometimes, pull up to your husband's office in your minivan and text him and say, hey, lunch break time. I was going to say, want a piece of this, but I'm not going to say that. But that'll change your marriage. That'll change some things. And then, look, all the men are like, this is best seminar we've been, right? Saved it for the end, right? But then, you know what's fun? Now, that minivan becomes a little code word. And now every time you mention that word in the home, the husband and wife are like, kids, go get in the minivan. And then husband and wife are like, oh, we just did it outside my husband's office in that minivan last week. That's an awesome thing. So, nothing wrong with that. It's not more. They're married. So don't do it with other people in his office. So, but look, liven it up again, invest in it a little bit again, and learn. There's a lot of other stuff, but I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to close up because it's 12:01, and I want to honor your time. I'll close with this. I would encourage you, I would thank you for investing this time. If we can help you in any way, I'm going to stay afterwards, answer some questions. You can email us. Our email's on the bottom of your handout. I'll answer your questions. Tell me you met me here at Graceway. I'll walk this path. I'm hoping I'll do this for the next 10 or 15 years. I'll help you walk through it any way we can. If you do get the little CDs, do listen to the Strong-Willed Child one probably first. If you have questions, email. But here's the final word I wanted to do today is enjoy. I want you to begin to enjoy the strong-willed child again, because somewhere along the way, they ruined your agenda. Because all the moms in here are very purposeful people. You had a plan. You read all the books. Here's how we're going to do it. I'm never going to use TV as a babysitter. And that lasted like a week. And you're like, screw that. Watch some TV because I got stuff to do, right? Just not 3 hours of Jerry Springer. So, by the way, I've got 4 minutes. Can I do one more story? You okay? This is a really good one for your marriage and discipline. I forgot to do it before. I love this. So here's the setup. Dad comes home. Let's say you have 2 daughters. And Dad tells his daughters, girls, I love my time with you. I cherish it. I love my time. We love playing Prince and Princess and doing all those things. But I cherish my time with my wife. One night a week, I'm going to light a candle. And I'm going to put that candle in the kitchen. And when you two see that candle lit in the kitchen, here's what it means. I'm having dinner alone tonight with my wife, and you two are not invited. Now, that's not mean. I'm not saying you're the reason our marriage stinks now. I'm not saying that. Just let know you're not invited. Because I'm having dinner alone tonight with my wife, because I want that time alone. So, we're going to feed you early, and while we're eating, we're going to sit you in front of a video. And again, I'm not a big fan of TV, video games, and all that stuff, but for 30 minutes of Jerry Springer won't ruin your kids. It'll make them grateful that they grew up in your home, okay? Because they're going to see the other side of life, like, that's what happens when you don't have discipline and God in your life. So, you're going to watch that. But here's what I want you to know. I'm protective of this time. If I hear a peep out of you during that 30 minutes of our dinner time, if you come near the kitchen, you will rue the day that you did that. I will be up on Saturday and Sunday morning banging pots and pans in your ears at 5:30 in the morning. The tone is, don't mess with me. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing, because your kids are going to hear Dad saying, I want this time, and nothing's getting in between it. It's 30 minutes. Why? Because you probably haven't had a good talk with your spouse since before you had kids, and it's going to be awkward. So, some crazy weather we've been having lately, huh, honey, right? Because you can't talk about the kids. You have to reconnect. And watch what happens. Those 2 kids are looking in that kitchen, and they see their mom and their dad connected. When you two walk out of that kitchen connected, that is a great form of discipline right there. And it is a beautiful, comforting thing to know my mom and dad, once or twice a week, have that candle in the kitchen, and they talk a lot about a minivan. And it's a little bit weird, but suddenly they seem happier. And now they want to get a new, bigger minivan and have stuff in it. So, enjoy 2 things. I want you to enjoy your strong-willed child. Enjoy them. Enter into it. Stop resisting the difficulty and enter into it and find the joy. And enjoy your spouse again like you haven't. Work through, some of the moms in here especially, you have 14 years of resentments going through your head. And you're going to have to deal with those resentments and have some compassion and work through these things. You're not going to forgive it all and say like, oh, everything's good now. Work through it. But once you start enjoying each other, stuff will change in your home. Thank you for coming out. Thank you to our pastors, to the church leadership, to all that, like the camera people and the sound people and all the people who volunteered. Round of applause for them. They gave up a lot of time. Anyway, come on up. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Hey, thank you, Kirk. Appreciate it so much. Hey, have you enjoyed this weekend? All right. Can you show some love for Kirk Martin? Can you show some love for him? That's fantastic. I'm just trying to decide where I want to put my feet on the edge of the stage right now. That was really good. I appreciate that. Hey, we're so grateful, so appreciative you guys came out this weekend. We're not done hearing from Kirk, by the way. He's going to be with us tomorrow morning speaking during our main services. So we invite you to join us, 9 o'clock right here in this room, 10:30 right here in this room. So we're looking forward to that. Hey, we appreciate you guys coming out, and we're so excited. On behalf of the 302 Dream Teamers that minister from birth through young adult here at Graceway, we are humbled and honored to be your partners. We really are. I want you all to know that we pray by name for all of our kids and all of our students every Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I want you to know we're praying for you. We don't always know what's going on, but you're being lifted up in prayer. So we appreciate you guys allowing us to partner with you. Before we leave today, on your way out, you've got a little white card that came with what you got this weekend. That says Parenting Conference on there. On there, there's a place for your name, email, contact. Also, a place for you to say, hey, you know what? I'd like to be a part of a small group. Graceway is not a church with small groups. We are a church of small groups. We want you to be connected in communities the way we do. We want this weekend to continue. To do that, healthy means getting in a small group. So right on there, yeah, I'm interested in that, or even interested in starting a small group. Maybe you're like, you know what? A lot of us hung out this weekend, us parents, and we want to keep this going. Let's keep that going. So right on there, hey, we want to keep this thing going. Also, there's a space there for you to say, hey, you know what? This weekend's been what it's been for me. Maybe it's been tough. I got a need. And we don't want you leaving here not having that need met, not having a further conversation to connect with someone here on our staff. So please be courageous. Write that down. We promise you, next 24, 48 hours, we're going to get a hold of you. Make sure we connect with you, all right? That'd be great. Would you stand with me? Would you stand with me as we close today? We appreciate everything you guys have done with us, and we continue to pray for you. It's been wonderful. Thank you so very much. On your way out, just drop those in a bucket. You'll see some folks with buckets. That'll be great. Let's pray. Father God, Lord, thank you for this moment. Lord, we have enjoyed these last 24 hours. Lord, we have laughed. Lord, we've been encouraged. Lord, we've gotten some confirmation. Lord, we've even had a little bit of conviction and some nudging that's happened, Lord. So I'm just praying, Holy Spirit, you continue to do what you've done this last day and a half, Lord. And Lord, I pray, Lord, you would continue, Lord, us as parents and the adults around us, that we would continue the conversation, Lord. Love is seeking and doing what's best for others, Lord. And we know, as we've heard Kirk said, Lord, we are broken people. Lord, we know you loved and sought and did what's best for us, Lord, by allowing your son to break himself on that cross, Lord. So thank you that we have that hope, we have that love and that trust, Lord. So we give the rest of the day to you, Lord. Bless us. Safe travels, Lord. Bring us back tomorrow morning. We love you and we thank you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you all so very much.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed Parenting Conference. Be sure to join us tomorrow for Sunday services at 9 a.m. or 10:30. Kirk Martin is sticking around for one more day to bring us a message from Luke chapter 15.